watching on a tube. I'm married to a Funko Pop. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. Vitamins and minerals, they come from me through this here tube. I got married to my Funko Pop. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Love at first sight, love at first sight. What shall I do with love at first sight? Put it in my hand, throw it on the ground. Who knows? Just what will I do?
We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop.
The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. It's so insane. It's so insane. Is so insane.
I got married to a Funko Pop. We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop. I am married to my Funko Pop. We got joined, coitus in a Subway shop. Vitamins and biscuits and minerals, they come to me through a tube. My whole life is spent watching on a tube. Whoa-oh. Whoa-oh. joined in a subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. Vitamins and minerals, they come from me through this here tube. Fuck up. Fuck up. Fuck up. Fuck up. I got married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a subway shop. Whoa. Love at first sight, love at first sight. What shall I do with love at first sight? Put it in my hand, throw it on the ground. Who knows? Just what will I do?
We got wedded, conjoined in a subway shop. Whoa.
The human guinea pig stuff in Africa. Is so insane. The human guinea pig stuff in Africa. Is so insane. Is so insane. Is so insane. Is so insane.
Funko. Funko. Oh, oh, oh. Funko. Funko. Oh, oh, oh. I got married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, conjoined in a subway shop. Whoa. I am married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got joined, coitus in a subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and biscuits and minerals, they come to me through a tube. My whole life is spent watching on a tube. Whoa. Whoa. Oh. Whoa. I'm married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a subway shop. Whoa. I got married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Whoa. Love at first sight, love at first sight. What shall I do with love at first sight? Put it in my hand, throw it on the ground. Who knows? Just what will I do?
We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop. Whoa.
The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. Is so insane. Is so insane. Is so insane.
Funko, Funko, oh, oh, oh. Funko, Funko, oh, oh, oh. I got married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop. Whoa. I am married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got joined, coitus in a Subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and biscuits and minerals, they come to me through a tube. My whole life is spent watching on a tube. Whoa-oh. Whoa-oh-oh-oh. Whoa. I'm married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Whoa. Vitamins and minerals, they come to me through a tube. Vitamins and minerals, they come from me through this here tube. Whoa. Funko, 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 I got married to my Funko Pop. Whoa. We got wedded, we got joined in a Subway shop. Whoa. Love at first sight, love at first sight. What shall I do with love at first sight? Put it in my hand, throw it on the ground. Who knows? Just what will I do?
We got wedded, conjoined in a Subway shop. Whoa.
The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. The human guinea pig stuff in Africa is so insane. It's so insane. It's so insane. Is so insane.
Funko, Funko, oh, oh, oh. Funko, Funko, oh, oh, oh. I got married to a Funko Pop. Whoa. I can give 100 million reasons to build a barricade. Blame it on the changing of the seasons, the thoughts that I convey. Does it make it alright? It doesn't make it alright. So roll it over my soul, leave it here. We are in weird times, strange times. Today's topic will not primarily be theologically focused. I think we've covered pretty extensively the theological elements. I want to step a little bit away from theology because, I mean, we kind of went on a bender, so to speak. We went on a tear the last few weeks, pretty much doing multi-hour debates every day. So I got to take a break from that. I can't do that all the time. So close to Creed. How dare you thumb down? Actually, you notice the first part. The first part was good. And then I was intentionally being silly with the chorus. Does anyone even know what I'm singing? Of course you don't. All of you uncultured rubes in the chat, particularly Haggard. We always know the Haggards when they show up. When they show up, the quality, the tier, we're dropping down a few tiers, a few strata. But things are weird. Things are crazy. So we're going to be talking about the geopolitical stuff. We're going to be talking about all the weird signs of things happening. Only the real ones know what I'm singing. Tori Amos? Jeez. Tech Noir, you should know me better than that. Jay was a cornflake girl. Thought it was a good solution. Jay was a cornflake girl. That's my Tori Amos impression. That's actually pretty good. I used to have that one album. I mean, I had all kinds of shit in high school. And interesting, she was like the poster child of like Gen X atheist girl. Remember Tori Amos? Sloby was a cornflake girl. Thought it was a good solution. Come on now, that's a good Tori Amos impression. No, I'm going back to like 2003. I'm singing like, 2002, 3 era. Look around at all the plastic people. Live without a care. Try to sit with me around my table, but never bring a chair. Does it make it alright? So roll it over my soul. Leave me here. The Gay Bar Electric 6. Ouch. I mean, you might think, how is this connected? Everything's connected, bro. It's all connected, dude. Did you even see that one chick that I shared on Instagram? Let me prove it to you. People were like, everyone is doing these serious streams. I mean, how many times we got to make a video of the same shit? You know what I mean? Over and over and over. How is it all connected? Let me show you how everything's connected. First of all, let's look at... We're going to get into the geopolitics. I got to be silly. I can't do all this stuff serious all the time. It drive me crazy. We're going to be looking at a lot of different things today. A lot of samples of cultural degradation. A lot of samples of silliness. We're going to work through some of the classic books. This is a recap stream. How we got to where we are. What the overall plan of the elites is. Not from dumb conspiracy books, but from writings of the elite themselves. Before we do that, though, I want to show you what I'm talking about with how everything is going to make sense. If you just understand everything's one, bro. Like this.
Yeah. Then I took some ketamine. I entered the forest to puke, and the tree people took care of me. They were literally hovered around my shoulder.
Today, you guys are going to enter into the deep rabbit hole trip with me. You're going to take some mental ketamine. I don't advocate taking drugs. You're going to take some mental initiatory drugs from me, which will be my singing, the knowledge bombs that are about to get dropped, the impressions. You're about to get inducted into my stream of consciousness. And this lovely lady here is going to explain how this occurs.
Watching me as I was getting sick. They were like the best friend that you need. They knew I was responsible to go in the bushes and go puke by myself and come back. Laid back, and I astral projected. I literally entered the cores of the universe, and I was floating. I could see the festival below me. I saw colors, like colors I've never even seen before, mixed with each other. It was the trippiest shit I've ever experienced in my entire...
I mean, this is like Phaedo level stuff, right? Socrates in the Phaedo says, bro, there's like colors we can't even know, dude. We ain't even seen these colors. This chick is talking like literal platonic dialogue stuff right here.
Takeaway.
Everybody is God. Everybody is God. That is my takeaway. We are not human. We are beings from the light source, from one being. We got mixed in a bunch of fucking chaos, and now we have to deal with it.
Bruh, like everybody's God. We all just got like mixed up in the freaking chaos, bro. Welcome to that chaos. Welcome to the chaos, which is cringecore, which is me randomly singing Oasis lyrics. Did nobody know what song I was singing? Man, y'all got to... Oh, man, y'all gotta catch up, bro. The only salvation for the West at this stage is my conspiracy theories and the reunion of Oasis. Now, Oasis is back together. This has to be some apocalyptic sign of the end. And first of all, have you noticed that the 90s keep popping back up? I mean, I know that we've been saying this for a few years now, but everything that I remember from the 90s that sticks out seems to suddenly be back. Now, part of that is, of course, because corporations and pop stars, they know to capitalize on the nostalgia 10, 20 years later. As their youthful audience become mommies and daddies and whatever, and they grow up, it's time to capitalize on the establishment. I mean, on the nostalgia, I should say. You came for Richard Simmons. Well, look, dude, you're gonna get everything and more today. I actually should have put Liam and Noel on the thumbnail, and I forgot to. Welcome to your initiation. Today is you're gonna be seeing the world through my eyes. Let me show you the world in my eyes. Does anyone know that one? Now, this was a fake video, but I thought it was funny because it's accurate. Did you guys see this?
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift
is not a psyop. Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
This is extremely dangerous. Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
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 Taylor Swift is not a psyop. Is not a
Taylor
psyop.
Swift is not a psyop.
Taylor Swift is not a psyop.
I like that clip. That was genius. And yes, I know it's fake audio, but it's actually true, though, because after all that hubbub and all the people beginning to question, like, wait a minute, this whole drama with Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, this seems to be kind of manufactured. And then we saw the clip come out where NATO was expressing their interest in using Taylor Swift for psyops and propaganda. So, no, come on. I'm not going to rehearse all this Vatican II Pope stuff because how many times do we have to talk about that? So rather than talking about the theology, and what's interesting is that I used to see in comments with this papal stuff a lot of coping and a lot of attempting to explain it. And it would even maybe be half and half at times, like maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now, the comments, generally speaking, especially if you go over here to my video, which is Oasis Cast No Shadow live at Nebworth Park. I'm just kidding. Over here at this. This one, which I just did last night. The majority of the comments, we got almost 600 now, are in agreement that, okay, we can't defend this anymore. You've got a few Pope-splainers here and there. They're in the total minority. Most of the, quote, Pope-splainers are actually just weird profiles that keep spamming John Paul II quotes that don't prove or disprove anything. They're just kind of irrelevant. And then you've got the usual, like, 5 or 10 Roman Catholic comments of, embrace the Pope, schismatic. Well, why would I embrace the Pope when he's literally saying that Islam is a path to God? Now, if you doubt me, again, these people, as usual, have no reading comprehension, so they typically don't read the whole context or the whole quote. And it's not just these two documents. These are just two of the clearest. You can also look at the Roman Catholic Catechism, which says the same thing, summarizing the two. It doesn't say that they only think they have it. It says they, with us, adore the one merciful God. And they have the faith of Abraham. You have to read both comments from both dogmatic statements. But again, they suddenly have reading comprehension problems when it suits them. Welcome, everybody. We are doing a little bit of a geopolitical catch-up. And I wanted to talk today, again, more broadly, more generally, about how we got to where we are. A lot of the books I've been reading lately and what my thoughts are on those. Why is the 90s coming back? I mean, these are kind of the the thought processes that I've been having the last several months. And the reason I wanted to talk about end times to a degree is, did you notice that a lot of the Roman Catholics, so Tim said, hey, maybe it's the end times. And since yesterday's papal statements, everybody's in a flurry. I mean, Roman Catholics are in a flurry. My DMs are filling up. Tim and I are going back and forth. We went back and forth all morning. I mean, in a friendly, civil way. So we're going back and forth on, well, Vatican I and the Pope, and, you know, can a Pope be a heretic and all that, and blah, blah, blah. So I think I covered those quotes from Vatican I in yesterday's video. And I think I responded to the typical objections like, look, Vatican I says that the Pope and the office of the Pope and its power to be the source of unity and continuity, and it's the source of public visible unity. That's Vatican I's argument. The papacy, right? It says in two places that office will continue, quote, until the end of time. It doesn't say it'll continue to the end of the world and then there's this great apostasy. There's nothing in Vatican I about a great apostasy which allows for 100, 200 years, 50 years, 70 years, whatever, without a valid pope. And if you did admit that, let's say we admitted or we went with the position of these apparitions that, whether it's Akita or whether it's a La Salette, that there could be a mass apostasy in the Roman Church. If we admitted that, then we're admitting that in the last days, the Roman Church and the Roman See loses its public visible unity. But that's one of its key four mark elements. One, Holy Catholic Apostolic, right? So in their position, those constituent elements, which you'll read about in Roman Catholic theology, could never be lost. And what's the essential foundation of the public visible unity? The Roman See. So you see, it's actually impossible to say that the Pope could defect, apostatize, Rome could lose the faith, etc., and be an adherent to Vatican I. And remember, it's supposed to be simple. I mean, the argument of Vatican I is that it's supposed to be clear, simple, and manifest that the Roman See is the sign of the one true church. And so, I'm not worried or upset about Sam. I know Sam's dealing with these issues. He's been dealing with them a long time, so I'm sensitive to that. And if he wants to have a discussion, I just message him. I said we can have that discussion anytime. One thing that I think Roman Catholics need to do, and I said this to Tim too in DMs, is, you guys should read through Vatican I. I said that to Tim. I said that to Sam. And I'm not being rude or arrogant. It's just a lot of Roman Catholics don't read through those source documents. In Tim's case, he says, well, I'm not primarily focused on dogmatic theology. I'm focused on philosophy. But now let me respond to this whataboutism, because a lot of the Roman Catholics at this point will say, well, you have a bad guy in Bartholomew, according to your own standards. You guys have Elpidophoros. You guys have these bad bishops. The argument is not, we don't have bad bishops, you do. The argument is not, our bishops don't sin, you have sinning bishops. No. It's way more precise than that. The argument is that in Catholic theology, you cannot have a heretical pope or an apostate pope. That's the thing. Why? Because Vatican I's ecclesiology hinges the Roman Catholic system on the indefectibility and the inerrancy of the Roman See. The Roman See cannot teach error, whether publicly and dogmatically or in its normal universal ordinary teaching. And even in its ordinary teaching, although it might err, you're still supposed to submit to that with docility, according to Lumen Gentium and the traditional Roman Catholic moral theology. It's your duty to submit with docility, even in the areas of Catholic theology that might be erroneous. It's not your place to go and correct the Pope. So with those principles in mind, it has nothing to do with saying that the Roman bishop is impeccable. Nobody made the argument that Roman Catholicism is false because we think the Pope is impeccable and Roman Catholics think the Pope is impeccable. No. It's about indefectibility and the Roman See not being liable to teaching error, which is emphasized over and over and over. No one judges the first see. The Roman See is free from error. That actually goes back to things like Dictatus Papae. It goes back to Samacian forgeries and various papal forgeries that are still in canon law, that no one judges the first see. The first see never errs. So we need to, again, set aside this oft-repeated objection, which is a deflection. It's a deflection. Nobody is saying that the Orthodox Church has bishops that don't err or that don't sin. It's that Catholic theology teaches that you can't be so let's talk about these quotes that are being posted here. Orthodox ecclesiology is not Roman Catholic ecclesiology. So if Sam quotes patriarchs saying heretical things, everybody, Nestorius was a patriarch of Constantinople. Many patriarchs have been heretics. It doesn't undo the system of Orthodox ecclesiology and Orthodox theology if you have heretical patriarchs. If the Pope is a heretic, it undoes the Roman Catholic system and dogma. Do you see that? It's that simple. So I don't understand why people don't get this argument. I don't know if they're intentionally misunderstanding the argument and just doing whataboutisms, because it's not a whataboutism. It's critiquing the Roman Catholic theology internally and then saying we don't have that problem in the Orthodox Church. I mean, how do people not? This is the same stuff Lofton has been saying for years. Yeah, dog, y'all got problem bishops too. But what about your problem bishops? The argument is not we don't have problem bishops. How silly is this? The problem is that you have a system which mandates and solidifies certain principles about the Roman See, which could never be the case. In contrast to Tim, it can never be the case that the Roman See goes without its living successors until the return of Christ, that it loses that visible unity. Contrary to Sam or whoever else is arguing that, but you have sinful bishops who teach heresies too. Yes, but we don't hinge everything on one guy. So this is an interesting point too that's raised about tu quoque and the question of double standards. So you have to be precise when something is tu quoque and when something is a double standard. So it really depends on what's being argued, because this can be confusing. It can be confusing because tu quoque is when, let's say somebody says, I say, hey, Lofton, the Vatican II teaching about the Roman See never defecting shows that Pope Francis has defected and that therefore Roman Catholicism is not true. And then if Lofton said, well, what about your bishops that teach errors? That would be a tu quoque, because the question was given to him and he responds with a question. But the reason that doesn't work is that I'm not bound by the logic of his system, right? The Patriarch of Constantinople is not a pope. Even the Pentarchy is not a pope. It's not a five-headed pope. So you can't use your system to critique me, right? So that would be tu quoque. Well, what about your system? You're a hypocrite because you have. So the other position that's not, like when we're talking with Muslims and we're doing an internal critique, and we say, in our theology, in our system, it's not inherently contradictory to say that God is one and three. There's an equal ultimacy there. And then we say to the Muslim, likewise, you have to give an account for Allah's many attributes and his essence. The same metaphysical problem. Do you see that's a comparison between two systems and the internal standards amongst them. It's not a tu quoque, because it depends on what the argument is. If the argument is that you have to justify your system on my system's grounds, right? Or if the argument is, are you using a double standard? For example, a Muslim will say something like, liberal scholarship is my source and my proof for why the Bible's false. But then the same liberal scholarship, which says that the Quran is false, is discarded. You see that? Yeah, so an internal critique is not a tu quoque. Exactly. Thank you, Inquisitor. That's what I'm trying to delineate here. And I'm glad this came up because somebody brought this up the other day with the Muslims. And I was like, no, these are different positions here, different things. Well, I don't know what... I mean, just to make this really simple, I mean, I'm not watching Sam's stream, so I don't know what he's arguing. But to make it really simple, like, again, why would I be bound by the Roman Catholic idea of ecclesiology? Well, Sam has not read Vatican I yet. We were just talking about this. So that's why I told Sam he needs to read Vatican I. And I'm not being aggressive or trying to start a fight with Sam or anything. I love Sam. I'm just saying that in the DMs, I said, hey, you need to, if you're interested in Catholicism, you need to read this document. It's about 15 pages. And I said the same thing to Tim Gordon, too, by the way. So I'm not telling Sam or Tim anything different than I'm telling the other ones. Every Roman Catholic should be familiar with these source documents if they want to be Roman Catholic or defend their position. Because a lot of what's floating around today after this Francis debacle is a lot of people making arguments, again, not understanding Vatican I and what it says. So maybe we need to rehearse Vatican I. Let's do that. By the way, if you want to support the stream, you can do so via Super Chats. So the first thing we're going to note about papal teaching, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I don't think Sam or Tim and I actually had a discussion in DM on this about 6 months ago, so maybe Tim is aware of this now. I'm not sure what his position on this would be, but first mistake we always have to correct with Roman Catholics is that they think that they're only bound by the papacy's extraordinary teaching. And this is patently false. I remember when I was in the SSPX going to the Latin Mass, I used to think this. I used to think, like every trad cat does at some phase, oh, I'm only bound by what the papacy says when it's extraordinary. No, in fact, you're bound by way more than that. And you're bound by the ordinary universal teaching as well. So let's see this. This is one citation here in Vatican I. Wherefore, by divine Catholic faith, all those things are to be believed which are contained in the Word of God in Scripture and tradition, and proposed by the Church as matters of to be believed by divinely revealed, whether by solemn judgment or ordinary and universal magisterium. So you understand that the solemn judgment is the ex cathedra extraordinary magisterium. Ordinary universal magisterium is also dogma and must also be believed. So the necessary propositions to be believed to be saved in the Roman Catholic Church are much broader than a handful of ex cathedra statements. This is a classic mistake that Roman Catholics make. Let's give an example of this. Well, what's something that's ordinary magisterium? Saints. You cannot be a Roman Catholic and deny the sainthood of Alfonso Liguori, Augustine, whoever, because they end up being confirmed by Rome, obviously. And let's think of what would be the case if we could doubt sainthood in the Roman Catholic Church. Well, I could go back, therefore, and doubt all the saints. So the logic of the system would be undone if you could doubt sainthood in the Roman Catholic system. And that's why eventually Roman Catholic theologians tended to say, sainthood is magisterium. Ordinary universal magisterium. Let's see, because I think this statement is said again. There's another statement about ordinary teaching. It might be in one of the encyclicals. But you get the point here because it's still pointing out that you have to believe this. Now, there's also, Denzinger has two other statements. I might not be able to find these because I don't have my... One of them is in the 1700s. If you look in Denzinger, let's see. It's the statement about you have to follow the Pope's juridical rulings as well. Where did I've got that saved somewhere. I don't remember which number it is. It's like 17... Is it 1792? Ooh, I can't believe I remember that. So here's Denzinger 1792, but 1792 is a repeat of Vatican I. This is the statement that we just read in Vatican I. And there's three more in Denzinger that state that you have to believe also beyond that the decisions of the Roman College as well. So it is in the 1800s. I remember this much. It's getting into this. It's phrased something like, there's also a condemned proposition. It's a condemned proposition that you only have to believe what is in the extraordinary teaching. I'm going to find this because this is really important. I know where I put it. Let's see. Is Vatican I infallible? Or Vatican II infallible? And I listed these underneath it. That's where it is. I can't believe I remembered 1792. Okay. We come down here. This doesn't have the Denzinger statements, but it does have. So Pius XII in C. De Legilis says that even if you think the Pope is wrong, you're bound by his statements. Pius XI in his encyclical Casti Connubii, this condemns the proposition that you're only bound by what you think is, quote, Magisterium. Let's pull that up. These are just reaffirmations of the point that I was making. So it's Casti Connubii 104, I think it was. Therefore, let the faithful be on guard against the overrated independence of private judgment and the false autonomy of human reason. It is quite foreign to the bearing of a name of Christian to trust in his own mental powers. To imagine that the church sent by God to guide and teach all nations is not conversant with present affairs and circumstances, or that they must obey only in the matters which has been decreed. Do you see this? By solemn definition, as though her decisions might be presumed to be false or insufficient. Quite to the contrary. You are bound by all the teachings on faith and morals of the Roman Pontiff, not the ones that are only so-called solemn dogma. Right there. Casti Connubii 104. And let me find the one about Roman College. You are bound by... if I could think of the wording of the way it's worded, I could remember it. Let me look real quick in my bookmarks because it might be there. I think I saved it in bookmarks a long time ago. Something like Roman Catholics are bound by more than extraordinary magisterium. But what I'm looking for is the two crucial Denzinger quotes, because there's two more. One of them is a condemned proposition, probably from Casti Connubii, but one of them is, I think, from the Syllabus of Errors, and one of them is from there was a question of whether you have to accept the Pope's like juridical decision. So like if the Pope says so and so is excommunicated, can you rebel against that? And the answer is no. You're also bound by his juridical decisions. Let's see if I can find that. All we need is our lives in a suitcase. They belong to a friend of a friend. And as we drink to ourselves, we amuse ourselves underneath the sky again. Okay, what? I think I found it. Yes, I found it. Awesome. Okay, nice. Sweet. I can't believe I found that. Okay, 1683. While in truth we laud these men with due praise that they confess the truth and their obligation arises from the Catholic faith, blah, 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 that they do not wish to confine the obligation by which Catholic teachers and writers are absolutely bound only to the decrees of the infallible judgment, see 1722. But you are also bound by all of the other things. So 1683 is referencing 1722. The obligation by which Catholic teachers and writers are absolutely bound is restricted only to the matters that are infallible and the dogmas. This is a condemned proposition. 1722. These are the condemned propositions of Pius IX in the syllabus of errors. So it is a condemned proposition that a Roman Catholic is only bound by the infallible teachings of the Magisterium and not the universal ordinary teachings, or not the ordinary teaching. All right, next one. $16.98. Nor do they blush to profess and publicly, openly the axiom and the principle of heretics, from which various perverse opinions and errors arise. For they repeatedly said that the ecclesiastical power is not by divine right distinct from the civil power, and the distinction and independence of the civil power cannot be preserved without the essential rights of the civil power being invaded and usurped by the church. That's a quote from the liberals. We cannot pass over in silence the boldness of those who do not endure sound doctrine and contend without sin, that with no loss of Catholic profession, one can withhold assent from obedience to the judgments and decrees of the Apostolic See. This is condemned. So the idea that you can be a good, faithful Catholic and withhold your assent to the judgments and the disciplines, the disciplinary judgments of the Roman See, is a condemned proposition. So you are condemned as a heretic if you believe that in the Roman Catholic Church. And so that's the other ones in Denzinger that I mentioned. Now, I know Denzinger like Sam Shamoun knows the Quran and the Hadiths. So anybody who wants to discuss these topics, I'm more than willing to have any kind of dogmatic Roman Catholic discussion. Again, I know these texts like he knows the Quran and the Hadiths. So I'm more than willing to do any kind of deep dive anybody wants on these issues. But as you can see, I gave you 4 Denzinger references and Casti Connubii. So if you want the numbers, Denzinger 1683, Denzinger 1698, Denzinger 1722, Denzinger 1792, Casti Connubii 104. Vatican I, Chapter 3, Section 8. Clear as day. That's why we always say to the Roman Catholic, the trad cats, you can't reject Vatican II. It doesn't matter if it's called a pastoral council. It's confirmed by the Apostolic See. It deals with faith and morals, and it's for the entire Catholic Church. There you go. You have to believe it. You can't reject Vatican II if you're a Catholic. Anyway, How many times have we talked about this? Like a million. I mean, I've literally been sitting here covering Denzinger and Tradcat copes and doctrines for how many years? And you notice every time they come to debate, they get demolished and they run off and cry and they won't debate, or they just boot me from their streams. So that's why I don't go on their streams. Okay. But I wasn't really planning on... Now, people... Oh, by the way, yeah, everybody should be aware of Mortalium Animus, because that's one of the other really crucial documents in this, and people should read this if they haven't, because it's really the clearest condemnation. That's the latest condemnation of this stuff from the Vatican. So the last time that the Vatican made a really explicit rejection of multi-faith, interfaith gatherings that I'm aware of was the 1928, I guess it's an encyclical, yeah, Pius the Ninth, 11th, 1928 Pius XI, Mortalium Animos. And the whole document, it's not that long, you should read it. It's really a very clear condemnation that the reason that Catholics can't engage, look at this. So, venerable brethren, it is clear why the Apostolic See has never allowed its subjects to take part in the assemblies of non-Catholics. For the union of Christians can only happen in the Roman Church. The one true church is visible to all. It is the mystical spouse of Christ, etc. And so it could never be in communion or allow its members to engage in interfaith gatherings. This whole document, clear as day, is a condemnation of interfaith gatherings. And it's very famous, it's very well known. You know what Roman Catholics say? Oh, well, it wasn't dogma. Oh, but it doesn't have to be dogma for you to follow it. It only has to be normative teaching. And certainly the Pope's encyclicals are ordinary universal normative teaching. In this case, the Pope is speaking on faith and morals. He is speaking as the successor to Peter to the entire church. Who's it written to? The patriarchs, the primates, the archbishops, the bishops, in communion with the apostolic state, the whole world, on religious unity. The whole document is a condemnation, and it says that if you engage in interfaith gatherings, you are an apostate. You have left the Christian faith. You are no longer a member of the mystical body because you have surrendered what is a fundamental doctrine of Christianity, which is that Christ is the only way to be saved. So anybody who wants to come debate these topics, again, I know these documents like Sam knows the Quran and knows hadiths. I mean, I'll go all day long with Denzinger. I mean, you guys have seen my Denzinger, right? I've read Denzinger. I'm not trying to be rude. I don't think Tim or Sam even have Denzinger. So they're not. This is not a position that they're ready to debate. That would be like me saying, I'm gonna go debate Sam Shamoon on the Quran and I'm gonna win. No, I know these. I was an insane tradcat for 10 years. I lived this. I breathed this. I dare say nobody knows the tradcat ins and outs in the internet sphere better than me. I mean, there might be some nerd who spent more time in these stupid documents, but when it comes to executing the arguments, I dare say that there's not a tradcat out there that could really hold up to this. Because, I mean, if you take this stuff seriously, you're going to, immerse yourself in all these doctrines and documents. How long was I SSPX or SETA? So I started reading Roman Catholic stuff in 2001. I came into the Roman Church 2003. I was pretty quickly a trad. I didn't really know what was right about who was and wasn't Pope in 2003. I read the first set of Acontis book in 2004 or 5, but I wasn't convinced of it. I just thought, well, there's all these different types of positions that you could have on the Vatican. It took me a couple more years before I started leaning more and more to think that John Paul II was not a valid Pope. But I mean, I was still just, if you're in the SSPX, you just kind of set that issue aside because you think, well, there's not much I can do about it. I'm going to the Latin Mass. even the Vatican admits that, the Latin Mass is like valid sacraments. So if you're in the SSPX type position, you just kind of don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about it, and you just go to the Mass, right? But it kind of wears at you, and you start thinking, well, but how's this SSPX position actually tenable? And I didn't really think about the SSPX position being untenable until I was confronted with the question of universal ordinary magisterium. So in other words, this Vatican I teaching that you're not just bound by the dogmas. I mean, that undoes this right here, 1698. That ends the SSPX position. The whole SSPX position is premised on rejecting John Paul II's excommunication of Lefebvre. But clearly 1698 says you don't have the right to reject a papal excommunication. You must follow the Pope and the Roman See, the Roman College, in their juridical decisions. And so if that's the case, bye-bye SSPX. You guys are the definition. You are in the Roman system, the definition of schismatic. So if the SSPX goes, really the only logical position is to say sedevacantism, right? And for a long time, I still went to the SSPX because they had valid sacraments, even though my personal opinion was that by that time Benedict wasn't a valid pope, but there's nothing I could do about that. So it's more important to get valid sacraments. So I went to the Latin Mass from about 2004 until 2008-ish. Anyway, I wasn't really planning on. And by the way, why does everybody want to, why do you want to defend all this stuff? Is it not time to give this stuff up? The other thing people don't realize too is, and I noticed this in the Ibarra debate. Remember going back to the Ibarra debate? Remember when I was debating Ibarra and I said, Eric, I'm here, I want to debate pre-Vatican II and post-Vatican II teaching. And Eric said, Jay, I want to debate the papacy by stacking up historical case examples. But what I was trying to do was argue the system. The system, right? And Eric wanted to argue in an evidentialist way that if he could pile up enough so-called evidences for the Vatican I mindset of the papacy, then isn't it likely that maybe Vatican I papacy is possible? And my argument was, well, if pre-Vatican II and post-Vatican II theology contradicts, that's all I need to invalidate the whole system. I only need one dogmatic contradiction to invalidate that system, because that system says the Roman See cannot teach error. There cannot be a contradiction in dogma. So their own system has set themselves up for this fall. You don't understand this? And don't you think that, I mean, I'm not making this, this doesn't prove anything, because it could be wrong, right? I could be wrong. I could have missed some piece of data or something. But I've already been through this. I did this whole thing in the 2000s. What everybody's going through right now, I already did this stuff. I lived in Denzinger and the Summa and in the Latin Church Fathers and the Catechism of Trent, and I lived and breathed this. I actually bought the Tanner Alberigo official Jesuit version, 2-volume, multi-$100 set of the Roman Catholic Ecumenical Councils. I bought all of the papal encyclicals that I had access to. There was one papal encyclical set that was like $500 I couldn't afford. It was all the papal encyclicals from the 1700s up till today or something. But I read all 500 or 600 pages of Leo XIII's encyclicals. I read all of the Masonic encyclicals. I read all of the encyclicals in Popes Against the Modern Errors. I've read many of the encyclicals of Pius XII and Pius XI. I've read majority of Pius X's works that are in English and encyclicals. I read all of Denzinger multiple times. So, I know this realm. Now, again, doesn't mean I have I could be wrong about some minutia of Catholic doctrine. That's true. Because I'm not in that world anymore. I don't care about it anymore. Except for the purpose of apologetics and so forth. So, there could be some like, oh, you didn't know that the canon law actually says this on page paragraph 432, whatever. So yeah, maybe there's something minutia, but like the main issues here, I'm not wrong about this. Like I know this very well. So in the case of people like Sam or Tim, you know, look, it's always an open door to come chat. You can always come talk about this stuff. It does have to be a debate. People want to have a conversation. But this is what, I mean, this, I know this feeling too, because look, when I was in 2003, when I went into Rome, I was immediately confronted with problems when, at that time, this was not too long after, because I think John Paul had not too long before that kissed the Quran. And that was something people would bring up, and I would be like, well, that's pretty rough. I don't know. And I remember thinking for a long time, well, that's just a, you know, personal error that he shouldn't have done that. It's a mistake he made. But the problem is that the mistakes that are being made are actually on the basis of things in Vatican II, right? And there's no way that a person who is a Christian and believes the teaching and understands what Islam says could say that the plan of salvation includes those who acknowledge the Creator, the first of whom is the Muslims, who profess to hold the faith of Abraham and along with us adore the one merciful God. In Hinduism, men contemplate the divine mystery and seek a flight to God with love and trust. I'm paraphrasing. So if it had not said in Hinduism, the demonic false system, you might could salvage that quote. If it had not said, and by the way, it's not just it says it says that Muslims with us, with Catholics, they say, I'm not a Catholic, you know what I mean, with us, the Catholics, adore the one true God. Adoration is worship in Catholic theology. So it's not just a mental recognition that there's a single deity. Muslims worship the one true God with Catholics. So if these are the statements in Vatican II, and if for decades the popes have been having public prayer meetings with Muslims, if Francis and Benedict have been praying in mosques towards Mecca, their actions tell you what they think. And I don't have a problem saying that whatever patriarch went to the Assisi gatherings, he's just as much a heretic. Right, so what about the Interfaith Center in Russia? So Putin kissing the Quran is not the equivalent of the Pope kissing the Quran. And I totally agree that this is just as bad as what Francis does. But again, in the Orthodox system, it's a decentralized church, right? So if a patriarch apostatizes, or if a patriarch commits error heresy, it doesn't undo the system. Yeah, but again, you can put up quotes. The Orthodox, we have been criticizing and refuting ecumenism for how long? So all this shows is that the Orthodox Church has ecumenism as a danger. The Roman Catholic Church has ecumenism. The Protestants have ecumenism. But what's at root, the problem here is which ecclesiology is invalidated by this. So they're trying to take whataboutisms about the fact that you have problems in your church of ecumenism, and so do we. Yeah, but the difference is that the Orthodox, we could lose all the patriarchs. Like, let's say all the patriarchs went to some city for a meeting, and let's say that a comet destroyed all 5 patriarchs, all 6, whatever. However, I mean, there's not, you know what I mean? Like, so the 5 patriarchs minus Rome. Let's say let's say all of the patriarchs get destroyed by a comet. I guess the Orthodox Church doesn't exist anymore because we don't have the Pentarchy. The Pentarchy is a system that's accepted gradually over time by the 5th, 6th, 7th century. If it's something that is accepted by the 5th, 6th, 7th century, the Pentarchy, 5, then obvious it's not essential to the church if it didn't exist in centuries 1, 2, and 3. Christians were being saved in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century without the Pentarchy, weren't they? So Pentarchy is something that's a canonical development. It's not essential to the church. It can be normative. But conceivably, every patriarchate could apostatize. I'm not saying every patriarch has apostatized. But canon law and all of this, it operates different in the Orthodox Church than it does in the Latin Church. In the Latin Church, there's certain sins that ipso facto excommunicate you. For example, if you procure an abortion. In Roman Catholic canon law, to procure an abortion automatically excommunicates you from the Roman Catholic Church. Did you know that? Did you know that's Catholic canon law? Because as Mystici Corporis and Leo XIII Satis Cognitum say, to commit the sins of heresy and apostasy in Roman Catholic theology, ipso facto, latae sententiae, remove you from the body. That means that no synodal jurisdictional juridical statement is required. That's what latae sententiae and ipso facto mean. Ipso facto, by the very fact of worshiping in the mosque towards Mecca, you ipso facto have rejected the Christian faith. And in Catholic theology, how can the Pope be the head of that which he is not a member? How can the bishops be heads of that of which they are not members? And you say, well, this is an argument Sedevacantists make. So, either the argument is true or it's false. The source of the argument is irrelevant. That's a genetic fallacy. Well, I don't like Sedevacantists, so you're using their arguments. So, I mean, you guys use Aristotle's first cause arguments. Aristotle's a pagan, so should I throw out all of Aristotle because he's a pagan? So you see, you don't utilize the same standard as Catholics. When you complain about, oh, you use tag as Greg Bonson was a Calvinist, you use tag. So, the argument stands on its own, regardless of whether Greg Bonson said it or not. So likewise, either it is an ipso facto removal or it's not. Let's see if that's... I'm pretty sure that's still in the new Code of Canon Law. Here's the example of abortion. Oh, what do you know? Canon 1364. An apostate, a heretic, or a schismatic incurs latae sententiae excommunication without prejudice to the provision. He or she may be punished with the penalties. Do you know what this means, latae sententiae? Without a canonical, or excuse me, without an official pronouncement. A person who uses physical force against the Pope incurs an immediate excommunication by that act. A person who attempts to confer sacred orders upon a woman incurs latae sententiae excommunication. So you'll notice there's many actions and sins. Now, why am I showing this? Because in Roman Catholic canon law, this is their canon law, not all sins are equal. Not all sins incur the same penalty. If you have a dirty thought about a woman, you're going to confess that, but it does not late sententiae automatically excommunicate you from the visible church of Christ. In Roman Catholic canon law, all the sins that you're seeing listed here and actions are examples where it does do that. So this is talking about various invalid ordinations. If a person tries to ordain somebody out of accord with what's accepted, it's an automatic excommunication. If a cleric attempts to get married, he incurs an automatic excommunication. Anyone, look at this, Canon 1397-2. Any person who procures an abortion is late sententiae, automatically excommunicated. Again, do you understand that late sententiae, ipso facto, means that you don't have to have the church officially say, I pronounce Bob Smith excommunicated. The very word means by the action itself. That's why it says, any apostate or heretic or schismatic is automatically excommunicated from the Catholic Church. Clear as day. Well, you're not a canon lawyer. Okay, tell me where I'm wrong. No, I'm not. I don't claim to be a canon lawyer. Hey, Jamie, could you make me a double shot with some Manuka honey? Yeah, it does not require any formal decree by the Roman Catholic bishops or the Pope or anything. It's ipso facto late sententiae. See that? And did you notice that not all sins do this? Only certain serious grave sins. And some of the ones I didn't even know. I didn't know that if you try to punch Pope Frank, you get automatically excommunicated. That one was a funny one. I didn't actually know that. Abortion, that one I knew was late sententiae. I did not know that if you try to ordain a woman, you're automatically excommunicated. Didn't know that one. So there you go. So here's the present day. This is the 1983 Code of Canon Law, pretty sure. So they can't say, well, this is the 1917 Code. It's not the 1930. This is not the 1983 Code. No, this is the 1983 Code. So it continues. I'm going to make sure it's the 1903 Code. Yes, here it is. Presentation of the new Code of Canon Law in 1983. So all the possible copes and explanations and talking around all this nonsense. They're just counting on you guys not knowing that this is what they teach. And is this not obvious that not all the sins are the same? I mean, did they not know this? Did they think that... So here is the link to their canon law. And you can see right there, right away, 1364, right away. If you commit the sins of heresy, schism, and apostasy, you're automatically out of the Roman Church. That means the decades of popes committing all these interfaith gatherings and actions, which Mortalium Animos said is a surrendering of the faith, Mortalium Animos, are themselves heretics, schismatics, and apostates. And why is that? Because of the decrees of Vatican II, by teaching that all the religions are paths to God. You can be saved in Hinduism. Muslims have the faith of Abraham. Muslims adore the same God as us. Adoration is worship. Not just a mental recognition, it's actually worship. And so Francis is not doing anything new when he says what we say. Now, again, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with Sam and anyone else who critiques the ecumenists in the Orthodox Church. And guess what? I've been doing podcasts for years talking about the ecumenism in the Orthodox Church and calling it out and opposing it and calling out Bartholomew as a bad man. Why should I? I mean, I have talked to Sam in private about this, but people are talking publicly. I'm going to reply publicly, and I'm not mad at Sam. Again, man, I'm like Sam's experience with Islam, going back to the late '90s, is my experience with Catholicism going back to the late '90s in the year 2000. I first started reading Catholic stuff in 2000. So this is my world. Why do you think the trad cats hate me so much? Because I know their documents better than them. No, you don't know Aquinas better than... I don't care about Aquinas. I'm talking about their dogmas. The documents and the dogmas. Roman Catholicism is not Aquinas. Roman Catholicism is the dogmas. That's what you're supposed to follow. That's what the religion is, you see. So here we are. We got all this... sidetracked all this stuff. When actually I wasn't even here to talk about the theology again today. How many times do we have to talk? I've literally done this stream. How many times? This is probably the 30th time I've done this. Specifically these topics. Welcome everybody. Thank you. Appreciate those super chats. If you want to support the stream, you can do so via the super chat function. Pano, shout out to Panos. Have a blessed feast of exaltation on the new calendar. This super chat is to underscore that the streams today is a festal message. The cross of Christ ushers in the joy of the whole universe. Do not let any evil psyops rob you of that joy. Exactly. Now let's get away from all this theology stuff and stop trying to get me to argue with Sam in the chat. Sam's going to have to work through these issues at his pace. There's always an open door to talk about this stuff. I'm not going to do any interactions with William Albrecht. I actually think he's worse than Lofton. I would interact with Lofton before I'd interact with Albrecht. So, Sam can deal with this when Sam's ready to deal with it. Look, if people call names, don't worry about it. Let's be big. Put on your big boy pants. Big boy pants. Put your big boy pants on and don't worry about it. Who cares if he calls people names? Now, things are getting crazy because, Putin is warning that things could escalate.
Я хочу еще раз все-таки подчеркнуть это. Я говорил, но мне очень бы хотелось, чтобы вы меня услышали все-таки в конце концов. И донесли это до своих читателей, зрителей и пользователей в интернете. Но вы понимаете или нет, что если Украина будет в НАТО и военным путем будет возвращать себе Крым, европейские страны автоматически будут втянуты в военный конфликт с Россией. Конечно, потенциал объединенной организации НАТО и России несопоставим. Мы понимаем. Но мы также и понимаем, что Россия одна из ведущих ядерных держав. По некоторым оппонентам по современности даже многих опережает. Победителей не будет. И вы окажетесь втянутыми в этот конфликт помимо своей воли. Вы даже не успеете глазом моргнуть, когда будете исполнять пункт 5 Римского договора. Господин президент, конечно, не хочет этого развития. И я не хочу. И я не хочу. Поэтому...
So there is the recent statement, and Lord Voldemort commented, Putin warns there will be no winners in this war. Insane neocons like Bolton and Obama think that they can defeat Russia like they tried with non-nuclear powers in the Middle East. Please keep this in mind that the U.S. could not defeat North Vietnam in a 12-year war. And I think it would be a huge mistake to keep escalating this because it's really not serving the American population at all. It's serving a political elite class in Washington who has certain business ventures and geopolitical ventures, money laundering ventures through the Ukraine. Neocons, other foreign governments and foreign nations are benefiting from this Ukraine situation. No one here is benefiting from it. And again, it's just sort of escalating. And the problem is that because if they perceive that they can't convince America that communism or Kemalunism is legit, they're going to up the ante to make sure that there's not an election. And I'm not saying that I worship Donald Trump, he's going to save us. I'm happy to criticize Trump. I've always been pretty critical of, overall, he's obviously better than Kamala, but we know it's just limited what a president could even do. But we saw that the neoconservative Democrats have had a tremendous hand in the last 4 years in destroying the country. They're very effective at doing that. And I do not believe they are incompetent. I believe they are malicious. And so they could very well use this situation as the means by which there's not going to be a normal, stolen re-election. I'm trying to choose my words carefully on, thank you, on YouTube. Because we don't know what, I noticed that YouTube was removing a lot of health-related videos. So that was making me think they're going to continue with some form of COOF Part 2. But that's been really quiet, right? COOF Part 2 they've been pretty quiet about that. There was some talk of monkeypox. Monkeypox, you'll always be home sweet home to me. Good old monkeypox. Monkeypox, Tennessee. Yeah, so that, again, to reiterate this multiple times over, in the decentralized Church of Orthodoxy, if the majority of the bishops became heretics, which you see, for example, in the Arian crisis in the 4th century, the majority of the church is heretics. The church can still survive. If the Roman Catholic Vatican I model is the church, then the Pope becoming a heretic destroys the system. Can people not see that there's a difference between the Orthodox ecclesiology and the Roman Catholic one? So, anyway, yeah, I don't really think that monkeypox was a viable, that didn't seem to go over. So now it seems like they're shifting back towards talking about the threat of Russia again. And war with Russia and all this kind of stuff is back on the forefront. So they keep going back and forth, right? Now, keep in mind, as we've been pointing out, there could also be economic problems, right? We might move into an economic collapse, right? That could be one of the cards that occurs. Some people say, well, they wouldn't do that intentionally because they want to keep milking this system, and they why would they roll out an economic collapse? Well, one reason to roll out an economic collapse could be to bring in the new system. So if they're ready to bring in UBI and all of that, an eco collapse could be very useful for that. But again, war could also be useful for that. But also keep in mind, you could have a double, triple it up. You could have an eco collapse and war, and some other, scenario. You could have monkeypox getting loose, whoop, whoop, and then they say the Russians did it, and then this collapses the economy. You see, so all of these things are possible because we're ruled by very nasty, insane, mad scientist, corrupt people. And they have absolutely no regard for human life. They do not care about you at all. They, in fact, would like probably for most humans to be depop. So there we go. So the question then is, how do we get here? So now we see where we're at. We see the possibilities. How do we fight? Well, I would say get out of these big blue cities. We talk about this all the time. What's the solutions? Get out of these big blue cities if you can. I don't think we have to try to leave the country. I mean, you guys have heard this crazy capital gains bill that she wants. And I keep hearing conflicting things because they say, oh, Kamala's capital gains tax is only for those with like over 100 million. But you see, you can't trust these websites because they'll lie about what her actual policy is. And by the way, her policy, have you noticed her policy changes from day to day? New York itself will face a 43% capital gains tax. We're getting into like France levels of socialism here with this. This is crazy. So I heard 70% if it's above 100 million. You know what's funny is that how come she doesn't just have her policies on a website? You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't you put your policies on a website? Well, I think one reason she doesn't do that is that she doesn't want you to actually know, because her policy literally changes from day to day. She just literally says whatever she wants in front of an audience. So there's not even a reliable place to see what her actual capital gains plans are, because I don't think she wants it. Bernie Sanders criticized it. Well, if Bernie Sanders is criticizing your socialism, why am I saying 28%? Because literally like 2 weeks ago it was 70%. So where's this 28 coming from? Even 28 is crazy. Yeah, it'll destroy housing. That's absolutely correct. I mean, this will destroy the economy. Like, if she brings a 70% capital gains tax, or even a 28%, an unrealized gains, do you understand how crazy that is? That's insane. That will destroy the economy. And how would you even enforce that? So if I bought a house 5 years ago, and I bought it for $200,000 and it's worth $400,000, I owe the government $200,000. I would have to sell the house to pay the unrealized capital gains. And if everyone in the country has to do that, no one would be able to afford selling and buying anything. The whole country, this is so crazy, the country would collapse. That's literally insane. And then there's all these websites. She's not going to do this. No, she's not. But you can't find an actual clear statement as to what she actually wants and what she actually will do. Kamala plans to raise corporate tax to 35%. She wants a 45% long-term capital gains tax, highest since 1922. I mean, yeah, you could argue that the 0.01% could afford it, but the problem is that if everybody has to do this, there's not enough 1.01% to actually buy everyone selling their houses. Do you see what I'm saying? If 200 million Americans have to put their house up for sale, or their property, the assets that have gained. And by the way, it's not just houses. If I bought a antique car, yeah, it'll just really, it literally will collapse the country. Like, there's no, I mean, I'd be thinking about running down there to damn Mosquito Coast with Tristan, right? I'm gonna run down there with Harrison Ford and Tristana to the damn Mosquito Coast or something. That'd be time to leave the country. Anyway, I don't actually think there is even there's not a real, there's no place where you can go read Kamala's policies. Is there? What's her platform? Kamala's platform. I bet you her platform is just a bunch of just like sloganeer bullshit. Oh, she want to cut taxes. Under her, so here's her official plan says long-term capital gains is for those earning $1 million a year or more. So this is any small business owner, basically. 28%. So this is basically just socialism. And that's because her idiot followers think that a person with $1 million is rich, when that's the person who basically runs the small business that you work at. So this means more consolidation and everything being at Walmart and Target and Amazon, and you lose your job. So this will destroy even more what Koof destroyed of the middle class. Make rent more affordable. How is the federal government going to make people make rent affordable? This is so ridiculous. She will provide first-time home buyers with $25,000. From where? Where does this $25,000 from Kamala come from? Oh, it's from the taxpayers. So, socialism. So Kamala is going to take from the tax-paying part of the country and give it to first-time home buyers, which means people from El Salvador, Ecuador, Haiti. In other words, new visitors to America. You know what I mean. Take on bad actors. What? Does that mean she's going to go after B movies? She will take on big pharma to lower drug costs. This is repeating what Donald Trump did in his first term. So this is just a borrowed from Donald Trump. Who in the right mind believes that Kamala is going to take on big pharma? Are you kidding? Like, the Democrats are literally owned by big pharma. What else is Kamala going to do? Trump's Project 2025. Trump isn't part of this, which is unfortunate. So this isn't even true. Trump should have been part of that. The only way out of this is something like this, going in the direction of 2025. I mean, this country will collapse if we don't go in that direction. The blue-haired freaks and their zillion-dollar backers are going to destroy this country. Affordable education. In other words, sending your offspring to be made into blue-haired freaks at the university. So student debt relief. So basically more socialism, where people who are tricked into going to universities to get brainwashed then have to pay $200,000 for their brainwashing sessions for 4 years. And then Kamala will tax the rest of the country to forgive their debts. So socialism, low energy through climate crisis. So she wants to join us to the COP28 agenda stuff. And that's going to make the climate fix. The temperatures will go down. By what? By green energy and sustainability. All of this green energy and sustainability actually is way more expensive, which will mean that everything goes up for you. So literally, like, every policy that we've looked at from her is just a form of socialism, a form of further destroying the country. By the way, do you notice, so she cares about workers. Is there anything about the borders? Do you see anything about borders here? Because that might have something to do with defending the country and the workers. Interesting. So, like, the number one threat to the country, and there's no mention of that here. But of course, there's going to be abortions for your art-ho daughters here. Okay. Make our communities safe from gun violence. Okay, so get rid of the guns. And then she put Trump's 2025 agenda again. Okay, where? Let's see. She put it on here 3 times. Stand up to dictators. It's like this is written by like a 5th grader or something. So her actual policies are basically just socialism and Trump's bad. Okay, so there's that. If you want to support the show, you can do so via Streamlabs. The Streamlabs link is how we do super chats over here now. My neck hurts. We've already talked about the papacy thing. Like how many, we don't have to beat a dead horse. I'm not going to talk about the papacy all day. Like I have been telling you guys that Francis is a ridiculous person since he became Pope. In fact, you want to know what the first interview I ever did was on the internet? The first one I got paid for. The first podcast was with, I'm not even going to say he was a ridiculous person, but it was on the election of Pope Francis. It was right after Francis was elected. That was my very first online, it was an online conference, and I got paid like $200 for it. I thought it was like hot shit for getting $200 for doing an online conference, and I did a breakdown of Francis. So let's see exactly when that was, because then I can tell you exactly how long I've been doing internet stuff. Like public audio stuff. I mean, I was writing articles before this, but my first, like 2013. So my first public internet conference lecture that I got paid for was 2013, and I talked about Francis and his background. So what is this? 2024. So this is 11 years of public talking. I'm not talking about writing articles. I'm talking public yapping. How did we get here? So we talked about all this stuff. One thing we haven't gone through is some of the classic books that you guys know in the audience, but that maybe some of the newcomers, because heck, in the last month, because of the debates and stuff, there's 7,000 new followers over here just in the last month, which is larger than I usually get in a month. Usually I get like 2,000 a month. But this month we have over here 7,000. By the way, guys, if you don't follow me on Twitter, please do, because we're gradually, I think in the next, best case scenario, the next couple months, I could hit 100,000 on Twitter. So that will be a party celebration. We'll have 100,000K on Twitter party. There's my Twitter. If you don't follow me, be sure and follow me there. And help me get to 100K. We'll have our 100K Twitter party over here. And we'll recap all the great highlights and moments. I also want to kind of talk about this because I'm seeing this pop up a lot more. Certainly, TikTok is pushing this trend in the algorithm. Have you heard of this deconstruction thing? Deconstructing my Christianity. It seems to be very popular amongst evangelicals. And I don't know exactly understand what this is. It's most of these people become atheists. But they go through what they call the deconstruction of their Christianity. I first heard this from a Lutheran doing some Skittles podcast a few years ago, and he was talking about deconstructing his faith. Once I went through the process of my deconstruction, I understood that what I believed really made no sense. And I'm like, what is this deconstruction? Are they talking about Jacques Derrida and deconstructionism? I'm assuming it has some reference to deconstructionism. Now, none of these people know what that is. So I wanted to, since this has been popping up everywhere suddenly, and by the way, you'll notice algorithms feed you stuff to influence you. So out of nowhere, I typed in my name just to see what was going on TikTok, because I'm not over here a whole lot. I don't have a huge TikTok following. But I typed in to see what would come up when you put in my name, and you start getting deconstructing my Christianity videos when you typed in my name. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. So the algorithm is feeding anti-Christian and pro-atheist stuff to people that click my name. So I wanted to, let's see what this is, because I still don't really understand what they mean by
church,
this.
and the whole way here I was debating whether or not I wanted to talk about this. I made a video saying that I go to church basically because of the routine, and that's 100% what it is for me at this point. I would even go so far as to say it is tradition for me in my life, and it's one that I choose to honor because it's something that I enjoy and value. I guess I've been properly deconstructing my faith for the last 3 years or so. I was baptized when I was 8, and I was really Christian. I'm injured. I was pretty deep into it up until I was 21, 22. But even throughout that entire time, it was like a cycle of being super convinced and then questioning kind of everything. So one of the threads that I've always been pulling out as far as Christianity goes is heaven and hell and the idea of eternity. Because over the course of my experience,
Do they just mean questioning what the position is? Because I think everybody questions their positions at times, and we all go through a process of, thinking through, why do I believe it? Do I have good reasons? What if I'm wrong? But I don't understand why they're using this term of deconstructing my faith. I think the algorithm or social engineers will put stuff out, and then people will do this feedback loop where they repeat it, and they think that this is some sophisticated thing, and it's no, you're just being trained to do this. But why are you calling it deconstructing my faith? Now, I don't trust the TikTok algorithm, but as you guys know, it will say stuff like, "Oh, this has 1 million views. This has 3 million views." Right?
Dance with faith and religion. I would say I was much more convicted than I was convinced. So I would ride the wave of feeling very convicted about faith.
Notice it's riding waves of feelings. Evangelicalism typically is based on feelings, and that's why when you start to not feel it, you decide that, God doesn't exist because I don't feel it anymore.
Usually as a result of church camp or a specific sermon or conversation with someone that I found to be...
How long have we been saying this evangelical stuff is atheism factory, right?
Very convicting. Then it would always come back around to the fact that I wasn't really convinced about the things that I think you need to be convinced about in order to really do Christianity. Heaven and hell is one of the big ones. What I was convinced about was that I was a deeply sinful person who felt a lot of shame and then a lot of anxiety about my shame and how deeply sinful I am, and that I needed to be saved. And that's when I would start grasping and then get back to that convicted phase, something I've...
This is interesting because I do think in evangelicalism, especially, and in the whole, the whole tradition of the Protestant revival preacher and the tent preacher and all this kind of stuff, it's very much based around a lot of psychological manipulation. Now, I don't think that every aspect or instance of feeling wrong or your conscience convicting you means that you're being manipulated. But certainly revival preachers in general, especially in the evangelical sphere, they know and have perfected a lot of techniques of human psychological manipulation. And you can watch the Marjo documentary to see that in one case of a con man who admitted to doing it. But it's not like he's the only con man that does it. I mean, you could conceivably be an evangelical preacher who believes what he's doing and uses manipulation tactics, right? So it's not restricted to only con men. There's a lot of this going on, I think, in the... I mean, this could happen in the Orthodox world. You could have an abusive priest, or he's manipulative, sure. But these things can happen anywhere and everywhere. But I do think they're more prevalent in the world of evangelicalism because so much of that is based on subjective feelings, experience, and not on external objective doctrines, history, dogma, etc. If it's all based on the subjective, you're going to get this kind of a situation going.
Realizing as I've been deconstructing is that a lot of the shame and anxiety that I still struggle with today is largely due to the fact that I was convinced that I needed to be saved and that I am not good enough. I was not born good enough. I will never be good enough without this thing. My ideas around eternity have changed a lot and been influenced in a really positive way by some of the things that have helped me along my deconstruction, which I'd like to point out, and I heard this on a podcast recently, which I will reference soon. The deconstruction part is important, but ultimately my goal is to reconstruct, to get rid of the beliefs that are actually really damaging, not only to me, but to other people. And then a big thing that I have always grappled with is the idea that homosexuality is...
Oh, here we go. Okay, so here, it's the Skittles stuff. She doesn't want to accept that Skittles is wrong, And this other guy, he says, "Oh, I've been listening to these podcasts about deconstructing." This guy.
Hey, did you know that Christians who deconstruct have abandoned the authority of God and made themselves their own authority, essentially becoming their own God? You may have heard that before. I definitely have, because I used to think it and I used to say it. That is, until I deconstructed. I may have put it a little less harshly and said something like, you're leaning on your own understanding instead of leaning on God, but the implication was clear. These people who deconstructed were pridefully trusting themselves rather than trusting God. Now, of course, I see things differently now. I don't speak for everyone who's deconstructed or is deconstructing, but I do think that it's helpful, because there's so much talk about it, to hear from somebody who's sort of been through the process, because I think we can all understand one another a little bit better. My deconstruction didn't start with a decision to lean on my own understanding. And honestly, it felt a lot like the opposite of that. When I was a Christian, I spent a lot of time making sure that what I believed was true, and that usually meant going to sources that had arguments that supported what I already believed.
I'm not going to play this guy's whole video because I listened to it earlier, and basically he just spends 4 minutes saying that, how do I know to trust evangelical scholars or atheist scholars? And he said, at the end of the day, I'm just trusting scholars. And then he said, why don't I just trust myself, or something like that. And he says, I've been listening to podcasts. And I'm like, what are the deconstruction podcasts?
I remember the exact moment that I stopped believing in God. And that might be kind of unusual. I imagine for most people, it's this thing that happens over time. And while things did change for me over time, there was just this specific exact moment that I can point to. A little bit of background. This was when I was in graduate school. I had gone to a Christian college for undergrad.
Notice it's almost always evangelical people that are presented with probably terrible evangelical arguments, replies, and theology. And then they, as how long I've been saying it's atheism factory. Clown church is atheism factory. I mean, we've been saying this for like 10 years. So I'm assuming that's where this is going. But let's see.
Surrounded by a lot of Christians who were charismatic or Pentecostal.
There we go. So, feelings-based, charismatic, gibberish, nonsense church. And that's what she's surrounded by. I bet you she went to some, frickin'... Who's that TV? Some, TV preacher school. Who's that guy that had a big university? Oral Roberts, right? She probably went to Oral Roberts University.
A lot of speaking in tongues, doing miracles, giving prophecies, and being...
Well, yeah, once you figure out that all that stuff is bunk, then, yeah, if you think of Christianity as that, and then you realize none of these people are predicting the future, they're not doing miracles, they're rolling around acting like idiots and barking like dogs and giggling, thinking that that's worshiping God, then it's I'm out of here, bro.
Surrounded by that made me feel like I was, really part of something exciting, that God's doing good work. But interestingly,
God's a concert, bro. God's like a concert.
Never the one who actually did those things. I was just sort of adjacent to it. So I get to grad school. No one has any idea what I'm talking about with any of those things. I'm a total weirdo. And so I spend more and more time kind of isolated, just trying so hard to kind of catch up to where my college friends were. I really wanted God to show up, to do some miracles, like all my friends had seen. They told me.
Yeah, but none of that charismatic stuff is legit. There weren't miracles in the Pentecostal churches. It's all people hyped up on their emotion and deceiving themselves, and that's why it leaves everybody empty.
I get asked a lot about deconstruction, especially when people find out that I deconstructed before deconstruction was even a term.
Oh, dude, this Gen X dude was way ahead of everybody. He was so ahead. He was into deconstruction before their first, before you even had their first CD. He was following deconstruction, bro. Before you were even when you were in diapers, I was at the deconstruction show at the Exit Inn in Nashville, bro. Like, they were playing live. Like, I felt their sweat dripping on me when they were live before you were even a thing, bro. Like, I was way ahead of you.
90s and came back to the faith 20 years later, becoming a pastor and all that stuff.
Shit.
But in coming back, I was the pastor the establishment did not really like, because I am far less worried about those.
I'm like so hip and cool, bro. Like, the establishment didn't like me as a pastor or whatever, so like, come to my church, bro.
Who question God, doubt, or are in the midst of deconstructing from the American-style performance-based church system. And let's be real,
Yeah,
faith
bro.
is a journey. It's not a static destination. And
Okay, dude.
We're ex-Christians. Of course we're going to speak about something we dedicated years of our lives to. We're ex-Christians. We love the believer, we're just not too fond of the belief. We're ex-Christians. Now that our eyes have been opened...
I hate these TikTok style videos where people are like talking to themselves like they're alternate, like they've got alters, and they're like dissociating, and it's this is so lame.
Go back even if we wanted to. We're ex-Christians. We're not mocking your religion. We're just pointing out the flaws within it.
Okay, I want to know what deconstruction is. Explain this to me.
We're deconstructed Christians. When you as a child were scared of the boogeyman under your bed, we were scared of eternal damnation in hell. We're deconstructed Christians. We get accused all the time of not being real Christians just because we're deconstructed.
How the hell you spell?
Hi, welcome back to my series Reasons Why I No Longer Identify as Christian, and buckle up because this one is going to be a doozy. I'm going to ruffle
See, if you touch this thing, it starts over.
Hi, welcome back to my series Reasons
So
Why I
annoying.
No Longer Identify as Christian, and buckle up because this one is going to be a doozy. I'm going to ruffle a lot of feathers with this one.
Oh yeah,
but
it's so
just
edgy
get
to
through
doubt
this with me,
Christianity.
okay?
It's like, what? How? Where is this edgy? I don't understand. Like, literally, the whole country is basically a bunch of satanic pagans. So how is this even edgy? Like, no, whoa, ruffled feathers.
I was on the phone with my friend the other day, and they said to me, I'm really surprised that you're, still so passionate about deconstruction because you've been on this journey for years. Personally, I believe one's deconstruction journey, especially with indoctrination, never really ends. However, I'm just as passionate about it when I started as I am now.
Why are they calling it this? Who came up with this term that suddenly all of these people repeat and parrot like mind-controlled slaves? I don't understand where this comes from.
And they asked me
Does anyone in
why.
the chat know where this is coming from? I mean, clearly it's evolving out of the Protestant sphere. Because I only hear the ex-evangelicals saying this. But there had to be some podcast. Because they all say, I was listening to podcasts. So where's this coming from?
And instantly, I made the connection. And I had never really thought about it before. The evangelical church taught me that I was a victim. They taught me that I was persecuted and to be joyful that I was persecuted. They taught me that my persecution and my oppression made me closer to God. It validated that I was chosen and I was doing something right. But then I grew up and I realized that the religion that I was a part of was the oppressor in this country. And that messed me up so badly.
Wait,
I
how
realized-
in the world could anybody think that Christianity is the oppressor in America, which America is basically anti-Christian, post-Christian at this point? So, how are you getting oppressed in a post-Christian satanic country? I don't understand.
That my religion upheld the system of enslaved people. My religion was the
What?
reason why LGBTQ plus people could not get married.
Oh,
or were afraid
uh-huh.
of walking out of the house together without getting lynched.
Okay, so a bunch of baloney that Christianity is oppressing Skittles people from marriage, and they were literally going to get lynched walking outside.
The preacher says Jesus will heal you. Jesus will save you. Jesus will deliver you. Jesus will set you free. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus will. Well, the truth is, and the data is, and the reality is, Jesus will do none of those things for you. If you want those things done for you, you need to do it for yourself.
Well, I mean,
preacher said-
again,
I can tell you.
in the
I
evangelical
lost my
world,
faith.
they present Jesus as the self-help thing that fixes your problems, right? Like my financial problems and my relationship problems, and Jesus is my boyfriend. All that stuff, the way that it's presented in this whole domain, again, it's really just the factory of atheism. Because God is not a self-help thing. And that's what I think a lot of these people were told that it was. And this is the danger of these. This is the problem with heresy. Heresy and all this stuff produces these angry, bitter people, because heresy is really an inauthentic delusion. It's not just something wrong, but it promotes delusion and it promotes the false idea of what it is, and then it creates all of these train wrecks as a result.
Because I moved to Los Angeles and fell victim to the ways of the world. At least that's what happened according to a lot of people who say this every time I open my big fat mouth and talk about my deconstruction on the internet, as I did recently on Howie Mandel's podcast. Listen.
Dang it.
I lost my faith because I moved to Los Angeles
Howie
and
Mandel's
felt the very
podcast.
long episode of my podcast where I told my story in detail. So
I don't know why this keeps freezing. This sucks. Okay, so where do we go to
I'm being
deconstruct?
100% real and genuine when I say this. The book that helped me deconstruct Christianity by far the most was the Bible. And I mean this completely wholeheartedly, 100% genuinely. I read the Bible far more now than I did when I was a Christian. Learning about the different parts of the Bible, what types of literary tools are used in the writing of different books of the Bible, learning which parts of the Bible...
You didn't learn that when you were a Christian? Maybe that would have been the time to learn that. Like, why is she learning this now that she's not a Christian? Doesn't that itself say quite a bit right there?
Are letters, who the letters are to, learning which parts of...
Learning that parts of the Bible are poetry and letters? You didn't know that? I mean...
The Bible are poetry and use metaphorical language, looking
Yeah.
at context for everybody's favorite weaponized Bible verses. There's a lot of parts of the Bible that when you look at it
Well, she
with
has
the
to be
context...
pretty intellectual because she's got gigantic glasses, and you wouldn't wear those kinds of glasses unless you were like really high IQ. So definitely a lot to listen to there. It's got to be music.
Yes, it is. Sorry to tell you like this, bud, but God bless you and Jesus loves you. It is pretty toxic. It's a way of letting others know that you have something that we don't. That we are missing out on God's love, and that we need to be reminded that He loves us no matter how lost we are.
Why does this guy have a 1998 Wine Mom Italian poster with a cat in the background? Is he at his mom's house? Is this his aunt's house? What's going
Get
on
that
here?
you think you're being kind, but in reality you're not. When someone tells me that Jesus loves me, two things cross my mind. First,
Remember all that Tuscany decor that was popular in the 90s? Why is this atheist, Jamie's in there laughing, why does this atheist dude have Tuscany decor in his
it
background?
just sounds nuts to tell someone who doesn't believe in your...
God doesn't exist because I realized how beautiful Tuscany decor was from the 1990s. So just a nice little bottle of Chianti is all I need. I don't need God.
God, that your God loves them, sounds absolutely psychotic. And even after I tell you that I don't believe in your...
Bro, imaginary friend. Well, why would it sound like... I mean, just saying that my deity loves you that doesn't sound psychotic.
imaginary friend, you follow up with Jesus loves you. Why would I care what your imaginary friend thinks of...
This guy says he's probably the Antichrist. Dude, that's so edgy, bro.
Every day my brain breaks when I think about
Woo, she got a Whitney shirt on.
the fact that Christianity is built off of a contradiction. The same concept that got Satan kicked out of heaven, Adam and Eve kicked out of the garden, is the same concept that made Christ qualified to die on the cross for humanity, and the same concept humanity has to follow to be qualified to get into fucking heaven, being more like God. Now people will say, well, Satan was disobedient, but nobody will ask, how did Satan have the ability to be disobedient if sin never existed in heaven and disobedience is sin? That's a real question to fucking ask. Nobody ever asks, how was it after Adam and Eve ate of the...
What do you mean nobody ever asked that? That's been like one of the top religious theological debates in the history of religion. It's like the notion of free will and the existence of evil. So What do you mean nobody ever asked that? It's pretty. I mean, you might not agree with the answers, but you're not the first person to ask this.
Fruit in the garden, the first thing that they experienced was guilt and shame when the fruit was supposed to make them like God. You mean to tell me this motherfucker walking around feeling guilty and shameful? Tell you Christ was perfect, but my question is, why does the Bible depict God's perfect as being superior to Christ's perfect? And if they are God in three person, why did Christ?
The Trinity is just like...
Every day my brain breaks when...
I don't know what I believe about God, but these are a few things that you can't deny Christians absolutely ate. The phrase let go and let God. You know, the first time somebody said that, they were like, wait, write that down. It's so good. It's so succinct. It rolls off the tongue, the alliteration. Even if you don't believe in God, you're going to find yourself tempted to say,
okay, single mom.
I just need to let go and let God.
Yeah.
It's so good. Number 2,
right.
prayer.
I'm sure that
Prayer,
we really need to listen to
deny, good for mind,
single
body, soul.
mom Claire here about our theological religious traditions here.
Every religion has their own form of it. Even the atheists have like meditation. We can't deny it's so good for us. And what a sneaky way to get like older.
It's like so good for us or whatever. Like, have you ever heard of like meditation or whatever? It's pretty much like prayer. It's like so good for us.
Men doing a daily meditation practice. Love it. Number 3, the music. Hillsong Bethel, so good.
Oh my gosh. How would you even... You have to be completely ignorant of everything. I mean, does nobody... Like, so hold on. Deconstruction. If you wanted to deconstruct, like, maybe think about where did the Bible come from? You notice their deconstructing is all self. It's all their own subjective self. Where did I get deconstruct when I first felt bad and had bad feelings that made me, the preacher convicted me? What about deconstructing and thinking about, well, where does the religion come from? Because if you thought about where the religion came from, you would think, well, maybe Hillsong is not the like source of Christianity. Right? Like, maybe there was something before Hillsong. But this, you're seeing a window into the mindset of like the normies and the average people out there. I'm not meaning to be rude or arrogant, but this is the mindset of most people, is this kind of stuff. I think she's trying to be funny too, which it's not actually funny.
No, heaven must be real, because I go there when I hear the song The Blessing by Carrie Joe. Live children and their children. It's good. At this point...
She's trying to be funny, but in her mind, like heaven is like the best pop song that she heard.
Manipulate my emotions. It feels good. Number 4.
It feels good.
Speaking of that.
You notice almost every evangelical that we've listened to who's deconstructed has talked about how they felt and their feelings. Even the dudes.
The word blessing. I know the Christians don't completely own this, but they definitely think somebody's Christian if they say like, oh, that blessed me, oh, that's a blessing. I think it's just such a delicate, gorgeous,
no, I think that they're
feminine
evangelicals.
Word that really wraps up exactly how it feels to be blessed. And no matter where I am in my like faith walk, whatever.
In my like faith walk?
I will always say, that blessed me. This is a blessing. You're a blessing. It's so good.
Look at that poor baby over there. He's just like, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? That poor baby's being tortured by his mommy's TikToks. He looks miserable.
I keep coming on the internet crying and screaming because I just want someone to validate the idea that I'm not crazy for thinking that the abuse and oppression in the Bible is okay. I cannot trust. I want someone else to externally validate me that I'm not.
What is wrong? Like, all of the people who are 25 and under are completely losing their mind. They're completely gone. They have no... She's got green hair. She's crying about the oppression in the Bible. What is she even talking about? But by the way, why is oppression wrong? Like, on what basis? I mean, I believe that oppression is wrong, but I have a basis for it. So what's the basis for oppression being wrong?
Fucking psychotic for fucking thinking that this is not okay. No, I don't understand this world, guys. I don't understand any of it. I don't understand how people think that what they've been taught is all that there is to know. That everybody else is wrong and they're right.
Can't begin to describe to you how valid your emotions and thoughts and...
Okay, but wait a minute. If nobody can tell other people that they're wrong, you just told everybody that they're wrong by thinking that you can tell people they're wrong. It's amazing how silly and foolish people are, which is probably why Scripture says that the fool has said in his heart, there's no God. When you say that, when you go in that direction, you have the appearance of wisdom and insight and knowledge and reasoning and all this stuff. But in reality, you're becoming a fool. And what happens is that you don't even realize that the very things you're saying are contradictory. To say that you can never tell people they're wrong and that you're a bigot if you try to tell other people they're wrong, you're being a bigot because you're telling people they have to be relativists.
Feelings are about this topic. I was getting very emotional the first time I watched this video because...
Why are you getting emotional? The only emotion I have is laughter at this ridiculous woman. What? So again, we don't need, this is women being moved by their emotions and not by their rational faculty. And that's why we can't go to these people for this kind of stuff.
Does anybody else find it interesting that in popular Christianity, it goes without being said that God is a man until somebody suggests that God might be a woman? And then the response from Bible thumpers is, God doesn't have a gender. He is beyond gender. If God can't be confined to a gender, why do we require everybody to refer to God as he? When I refer to God...
Well, in a sense, he does have a gender because he came as the Son. And the Son became incarnate as a man. And so his God is the Father, but it's not a strict biological identity. It is a both and not an either or.
Does anybody else find it
One of the Here's some insane but very common Christian loopholes. Some Christians are completely against Halloween, but you know they're going to do a fall festival, they're going to do a little trunk or treat with their church. Everyone dresses up, there's candy. They're doing what the rest of the world does on Halloween. This loophole is so funny to me because I'm just like, just go trick-or-treating. As you all know, most of the Amish are not allowed to drive cars. This is a traditional form of transportation. But it also is very common for them to hire English people, which are non-Amish people, to drive them around. For some Amish, their church does allow them to do this. But for others, this is...
Well, this is just pointing out the Pharisaical, hypocritical stupidity of cults. I mean...
a little bit of a loophole, but I do not blame them. Now Mormons, make this make sense. They're not allowed to drink coffee or tea.
Yeah.
You would think no caffeine at all. No. The Mormons have their caffeine fix. Through soda, swigs and soaking, cornerstones of being Mormon. At my conservative Christian college, we weren't allowed to dance. You might be saying, but everyone's dancing here. Everyone's dancing here. But this is actually okay because it's not dancing, it's choreography. Let's talk about how fundies have chaperones on their dates. This is an interesting loophole to me because they always have...
I actually like this video. She's actually doing a good job so far. Like, I mean, this is the kind of stupid stuff that I would point out amongst a lot of cults that are totally hypocritical.
Chaperones that are like below the age of 13. They have them on their dates for accountability, but I'm like, if you really wanted someone who was going to watch you and hold you accountable, you would hire a sibling who's not 7. So many Christians...
Now that I've never heard of. Bringing a 13-year-old or a 10-year-old on your date as a chaperone? That's just the parents getting away with free babysitting right there. That's all that is. That's retarded, dude.
Women who are just like, I waited. They'll do all the things, but the
Jamie's
thing,
in there
it's
cracking
like
up.
everyone knows that you were having, and to make sure that you were still in the eyes of the church, in the eyes of Christianity. And then they'll walk around high and mighty for the rest.
I don't know what a V card is, but do I get a Bitcoin refund? Do I get a 2% Bitcoin payback on my V card when I use it at the gas station? What do y'all think? Dolphinately Bro, $5. Thank you for these studies. Do you listen to the new Nero album? Oh, I forgot that. So they delayed it coming out, and it's out now. And I just shared that the other day, and I forgot to download it. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. So I have not yet heard the new Nero album, but hey, I'm excited. What we're like 9 years. There's good things happening, guys. It's not all bad. The stars are aligning. Did you see that Nero liked my post the other day? I was like, whoa, dude. We're in some weird dimension where Oasis comes back. Nero has a new album after 9 years. I mean, I don't know what is going on, but as there's good signs as well as bad signs. So I don't know what everything is just so crazy. It's just all weird timing, though. We're in the 90s again somehow. We're in some sort of CERN alternate dimension where the 90s are back, but it's also apocalyptic almost. I don't know.
Of their lives. And I just want to say to them, like, you are not you did things that other people consider to be, and also it's a construct. Anyways, what are some of your favorite loopholes?
Wait,
There are
what's a
some
construct?
insane but very common Christian loopholes. Some Christians are completely against.
Her video was good.
Matilda, you talk.
What is with
I love God because he
what's the with the videos of all these evangelical teenagers crying? I don't understand what, like, they're having meltdown. They're doing this to get attention, I guess.
pulled me out of the trenches. That's right.
Not to shit on this, endearing moment or this endearing motivational video that inspires so many. But it's so funny that from a group of people, not these people specifically, but a lot of these people who believe in this religion, when I make my content, they always say, well, you can't expect God to do X, Y, and Z because he's not a genie. Yet, y'all are walking around saying you love him because he pulled you out of the trenches. Isn't that something that he's doing for you? Because you probably prayed to get out of the trenches and he answered that prayer, and that's why you love him, right? But that's not even the overall point, because I remember a time in my life where I was a Christian, and when somebody would ask me why I followed God, I would say the same thing, because of the things that he brought me through, the things that he gave me strength to endure.
So once again, the bases are all purely subjective, nothing to do with like the external and like what's rationally the case, what does the evidence point to, what's the philosophical argument for it. It's subjective feelings. And of course she's going to cite some goofy evangelical wine mom podcast.
If you are a Christian voting for
Evangelical wine mom podcast. This is still really like God spoke to me. Onyx, $5. To me, the Vatican I system is impossible for a fallen man to maintain. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. Of course, they're just going to say, well, if God can provide and guide the church to preserve the scriptures, and if God can preserve tradition, he can preserve a pope. Yeah, he could do that, but the question is that the governance that he chose for the church? And if so, why are there so many counterexamples in the history of the church that really only one or two counterexamples should undo the papal claims about it? So if Patar, $10. Do Orthodox pray to the saints? Yes, we believe in the intercession of saints. Watch the argument that I had with the guy at the beginning of yesterday's 5-hour live stream. Jesus said, do not pray to the dead, Jesus is a mediator. Well, the saints are alive to God, they're not dead. That's why Jesus says, Abraham is not dead, but lives to God. In the book of Revelation 5, 6, 7, 8, the saints are seen interceding and praying in heaven. Bon Jovi, 1912, $50. Thank you so much. Jay, I'm sure you've discussed this, but would Catholicism just be another form of utopianism, putting the Pope as God, man on earth? This has been criticized. It was the criticism ultimately of Dostoevsky in the famous Grand Inquisitor chapter that the earthly geopolitical power turned to the papacy at the time of the Gregorian reforms has resulted in a earthly power-based religion, which is a form of utopianism. And so that's actually the entire point of Dostoevsky's famous Inquisitor chapter. So he was making that argument. St. Justin Popovich echoes that in his critique of the papacy, as well as the key example of Renaissance humanism. So yes, faith and life in Christ by St. Justin Popovich and the Grand Inquisitor make that point. Bon Jovi, exactly. Now, I don't think we're exactly there yet to where Roman Catholicism is literally just this attempt at a utopian building of the kingdom of God on earth. But the seeds have been there, and if it continues in the path that it's on, which I don't see how it could be otherwise. I mean, the only thing I could see is that it goes away and converts to Orthodoxy, and then whoever doesn't convert to Orthodoxy, real Orthodoxy, Islam, the Roman thing becomes this other world religion that's Chrislam, New Agey, something. Emotional appeal, Gordon, $1. You cannot reject the papacy. Well, that's funny, because even the papacy admits that the Orthodox Church, which has rejected the papacy for 1,000 years, has maintained its existence as believers in the true faith and the one true gospel and so forth. So how have we maintained our existence for 1,000 years if we can't do that without the Pope? Patar, $5. Is baptism required for salvation in Orthodoxy? Yes, salvation is not a one-time sinner's prayer thing. It's an ongoing thing throughout your life. Andy Montes, $1. I'd like to see you and Sam interact and have a debate. Well, I mean, I don't want to have a falling out with Sam. I love Sam. I don't want to see him go in the wrong direction. Even if he chose to go to Catholicism, I'd still be friendly with him. I'm friendly with Tim Gordon. But we don't have to debate to have a discussion about these topics. Swad, $10. Do you know what glass bead is? Can you give your 2 cents on it? I don't know what that is, but is this getting into something dirty or something? I don't know what that is. Jake Burnett's $1. What is the imminent threat to America's success in the near future? The most imminent threat? It's all of them together, right? I mean, it's like the lack of enforcing the laws that already exist about the Wonder Wall. It's the toxic culture. It's the attack on biology in children. I mean, all of these things are kind of like the central threats. So it's hard to like say that there's one. It's all these. Bonds, $3. Kamala is not any intellectual. She's a fake and a fraud. Yeah, you know, I'm kind of at that point where it's like, is she just totally out to lunch and an idiot, or is she cunning and a little more malicious and she plays dumber than she is? Some people do this, and some politicians can actually effectively do this. I've not spent enough time listening to Kamala to really pay attention, but she probably is an idiot. But she could be more cunning and be playing the dumb facade to get away with more stuff. Ed Flores, $10. Do work, Jay. This is kind of work. I mean, I'm starting to get a headache from all these goobers and goofballs. I don't know if I could take much more of this. I still haven't figured out or heard a clear answer as to what deconstruction is.
Please just give me a little bit of your time. It is not our job as Christians to make our religion the law of the land. That is not what...
Actually, ultimately it is. So, not true. Donnell says, I will be given a talk on religious trauma. So, this is religious trauma. I mean, it's not, I mean, if this is religious trauma, then going to a concert is religious trauma. Because, I mean, I see Taylor Swift chicks, Swifties, crying and acting a fool just like these evangelicals do. So, I mean, everybody 25 and under calls everything trauma. It's like, I had to drive to the grocery store today and I was traumatized because somebody looked at me weird and it was just like trauma. Everything is trauma.
Why did God decide to communicate through literature?
This may hurt a couple Christians' feelings, but let's ask this question. What if God intended for that to happen? Rather than think that God has everything in our best interest, why can't we, for one moment, and I know it might be blasphemous for some of y'all Christians.
Why is she wearing an ankh? I mean, if God a bad dude, then why she turn into, was she going to be an Egyptian? She a queen?
It's so interesting to me that when I was a Christian, when I was an...
I mean, is Egyptology more rational than what we believe? I mean, Egyptology is crazy.
Evangelical worship leader, when I served on ministry...
When I was an evangelical worship leader and ran the ministry teams, problem number one. So women are not supposed to be leading the church.
Teams, when I was preaching, when I was praying for...
When I was preaching, number one problem right there. You're not supposed to be preaching.
People, no one ever doubted the legitimacy of my salvation. No one ever said, I don't know if you're really a Christian. And certainly no one ever doubted that I truly believed in God, that I really did have relationship with Jesus.
You'll notice in all of the evangelical situations here, it's all purely individual and subjective. And you can't call into question my relationship with Jesus because Jesus is my boyfriend. And it's never, ever about objective things. This is the problem with this whole delusion. And look, every person that we've gone through who's deconstructing is a former evangelical.
Now that I've come out as an atheist and said that I no longer believe in any gods or deities, I am constantly told that I must have never been a real Christian, that I never believed, that I'm a fraud. This is all called the no true Scotsman fallacy, by the way. Because as long as I was serving their agenda and believing what they believed and being a good...
Wait, what did she say? The no trust Godsden fallacy? The no true Scotsman fallacy. What did she call it? Hold on, I gotta hear this. The no true Godsden fallacy? Is that what she said?
Because as long as I was serving their agenda and believing what they believed and being a good little sheep like the rest of them, then... Scotsman fallacy, by the way. That I'm a fraud. This is all called the no true Scotsman fallacy.
Okay, no, she did say no true Scotsman fallacy. So
as I was serving their agenda and believing what they believed and being a good little sheep like the rest of them, then I was praised and I was absolutely validated in my belief. And no...
They're all talking about... Have you noticed the term? They all use the same terms, right? They're all deconstructing, and I need it to be validated, and I'm just deconstructing right now. It's like... People are really just regurgitators. You know what I mean? That's the sad part, is that, I mean, I think for a lot of these people, they probably really were mistreated, or they obviously saw the absurdity in whatever evangelical thing they were in. And so they go to TikTok, they go to internet, they go to podcasts, and they find people making interesting and valid points about the absurdities of all that. And then they just regurgitate. You know what I mean? So they're basically just spitting back out what other TikTokers are saying.
One thought that I was being a fraud. I was given the benefit of the doubt. But now my denial of their dogma is such a threat that...
You're not horny. You actually just need a hug. You need to...
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. That sister speaking my language right now.
What's good, secular fam? So the next time someone comes and tells me that God told them to tell me ... I'm calling Christ.
So he's right, though. All of these evangelicals that are in delusion, saying God spoke to me and told me to tell you, brother, that money is coming your way. You just got to keep believing. This is all delusion. Oh, she's, look at this, empowered. She's gonna sing. I can't play it because it'll ding the algorithm. But all right, so what is, here we go, what is deconstructing? Because I heard a bunch of people yapping about it. I have not heard anybody explain what it is.
Evangelical leaders have taken...
Whoa, dude, look at this dude. This dude looking rough, bro. Lay off the Mad Dog 2020 and the Virginia Slams, bro.
A pretty aggressive stance against the idea of deconstruction. Like, for instance, apologist Sean McDowell recently just had Alicia Childers and Tim Barnett onto his podcast, where unfortunately they just said the infamous line, if you've deconstructed or left your faith, you were never a Christian to begin with. So there's a lot of misconceptions about the idea of deconstruction in general. So let's talk about that. What does it...
You notice that basically the whole country is turning into a Reddit soy person? I think that's the goal, is to, like, redify the entire country to become complete chunk ball mind control NPC people that they can just regurgitate, have a big mob army of like Borg hive mind people that just regurgitate whatever garbage TikTok spits out.
Mean to deconstruct your faith? Well, here's what I mean when I talk about it, and I know that I'm not the only one who uses this definition. Deconstruction is merely just critically thinking about why you believe what you believe, interrogating your faith, taking it apart layer by layer, piece by
Oh, well, we do that in presuppositionalism, so we don't have a problem with that.
Piece, and checking to see if you find any veracity in the claims of the faith. And with that definition in mind, there...
What do you want about that this guy is having a little struggles with his sexuality?
I get asked a lot about deconstruction, especially when people find out that I deconstructed before deconstruction.
Oh, bro. Like, you don't even know. Like, I was deconstructing... like getting tickets to their concerts before you like even had diapers, dude. Like, I was way before you.
About deconstructing and reconstructing our...
Have you noticed that every deconstructing man is a soy man who looks just like the IPA beer titty bros that I make fun of? Interesting. I'm noticing a pattern here. Maybe evangelical IPAs are making soy men into atheist men.
Faith here at Restore.
Zach Lambert is a lead pastor. So there's a lot of toxicity in our lead pastor, Zach. Zach is just really toxic. So we also have a Mercury pastor, and we have I don't know. I saw lead pastor. I know it's lead pastor, but it made me think of lead pastor.
Now, if you aren't familiar with those terms, I want you to think of your faith.
Why is he preaching at the internet like he's in a congregation preaching at a podium?
Faith as a house made of bricks. Now, when I say your faith, I mean your beliefs, your spiritual practices, your church background, your religious community, etc. All of that wrapped into one is your faith. And your faith, I want you to think of it like a house made of bricks.
Well, look, he's got
the
boobs.
foundation was most likely
He's got
built when
IPA titties, as usual.
You were young, whether through directly growing up in church or just being exposed to it through relationships and media. Those early spiritual beliefs and practices were the first bricks put in place. And they serve as the foundation for your house.
These are your titty bricks, and they will serve as the foundation of your, I was about to...
I just go to church and...
What do you call it when you like a home brewery? I was trying to think of a home brewery. I messed up my own joke. That's all right. Oh, crap. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so basically I'm questioning... it's just questioning my belief system. Why are they all repeating these terms? Anyway. Okay, I can't. Here we go. Let's the last dude here. Let's see what he
Catholics
says.
are not Christians, and they will not be saved. The same is true for the Amish, the Orthodox.
Listening to Christians tell each other that they're not real Christians is absolutely hilarious.
Why is that funny?
First of all, it's kind of nice for them to get a taste of their own medicine, considering they know true Scots and me every day. But it's also like listening to sci-fi fans argue over what is canon and what isn't. But most of all, it is a perfect example of how completely...
There's nothing inherently contradictory about people in any system saying that these people over here are not true adherents to the system. Like, why is that hilarious or absurd? I mean, that's really any group will have that has some common set of beliefs will by necessity like exclude people who are not real adherents to that system. So there's nothing inherently contradictory about one group saying the other group's a heretic.
Unclear and inconsistent the Bible's message is. Because
the Bible.
Even its biggest fanboys
Why did she put it in?
Agree on
the Bible, right? Like, why is there scare quotes around the Bible? Like there's like we don't exactly know what that is. That's just the Bible. This like what is even that? What the hell is even that?
what it says. So much so that
Does she not know that that's a fallacy? The fact that people disagree over an interpretation has nothing to do with whether the book's true or false.
they condemn each other to hell. And they are the ones who believe in the same God, supposedly. So
Okay,
often
well, why is it wrong to do that?
that the reason I'm an atheist is because I don't have correct understanding.
You are an atheist because you are who? She looks just like what's her face? You're a B grade Anne Hathaway. That's why. That's that's Anne half a mile away.
Why do people leave their faith? If you are deconstructing, you might have heard some...
Oh, we heard her a minute ago. It was all the same people.
If the oppressor and the oppressed are serving the same God.
She talking with her toothbrush. Don't be pointing your toothbrush at me. That's an act of that's a microaggression. Pointing your toothbrush at me, girl.
Whose prayers are being...
I'm over here dodging that toothbrush right here.
I get this question every once.
Ugh. Of course, this woman, this wine mom over here wearing a damn Nirvana shirt. I deconstructed my Christianity, and now I listen to Pearl Jam and Nirvana like it's 1998. What's the 90s again, like I said.
Well, so I'm just going to talk about it from my point of view. So basically for me, in the last couple of years,
Basically
through
for me.
lots of therapy and time spent...
It's all me, therapy, my subjective stuff. It's nothing to do with objective truth or falsehood. Have you noticed that?
I came face to face with some of the traumas that I experienced growing up in the church. Before I say anything else, I want to put a disclaimer out that this is not my parents' fault. My parents are incredible. And I also want to say that I know that
wait a minute, why?
And they are flawed.
Why is it not
and
your parents' fault? If you were traumatized by what they're subjecting you to, wouldn't it be partially their fault?
Church is run by imperfect people. I'm fully aware of that. I have a lifetime of those tiny little church hurts. Those aren't the ones that I'm deconstructing from.
Tiny little church hurts.
I'm sure I've heard a bunch of people.
Tiny little church hurts. It's my own little village of tiny little church hurt people. They live inside my feelies. Tiny church hurt people. Tiny church hurts. What are the big church hurts? Like Roman Catholic pedo abuse? Is that like the big church hurt? What's a tiny church hurt? Fighting over the casserole? What's the tiny church hurt? Now I want to know what a tiny church hurt is. Or does she mean like literally like she has a tiny church? Like there's a little bitty like 3-foot model of a church and she stubbed her toe on it? I don't, like, what's a tiny church hurt?
But through digging up some of my own trauma and seeing the way...
What do you notice? Again, I gotta dig up my trauma. Everybody in all of this is repeating all the same phraseology, and there's a pattern to this. Everyone is basically saying, okay, I watched a bunch of TikTok, YouTube videos. I'm going to deconstruct, figure out the traumas and places that I was hurt, say that I was manipulated and hurt by whatever. I mean, maybe they were in some cases, but... And then I invent this narrative that I was a victim and Christianity is basically oppressing everyone. I mean, yeah, if you were at some weirdo evangelical sect or cult, yeah, it probably was oppressing people. I totally agree. Okay, I can't take any more of this. This is too, like, just low tier stuff. Ugh. King of Hellas, $3. Will there be a breakdown of society and chaos socially in order to establish a world order? I think that it's almost inevitable and inescapable. I don't really see how, without large-scale shocks to the system, controlled chaos, engineered chaos, what was the arc of crisis, the Brzezinski model, it seems like that's almost always necessary because there's never a smooth transition into, hey, everyone just get the UBI. It seems like the system benefits and capitalizes always on a crisis. So if you read most of the global elite texts, how do they always begin their books? We are in a crisis. Crisis, crisis, crisis. Ours is a time of crisis. All the crises. They always hype this up. And usually their crises are manufactured or exaggerated or maybe non-existent. Climate change is going to destroy the world. You know, this kind of stuff. Therefore, we must enact total socialism. Jake Burnett's $5. What is your response to Skittles when they are born this way? I say, girlfriend, you just better crank up that Lady Gaga tune because I'm singing it with you, girl. That's what I say. Is there any research on this? Well, saying that you're born with something like that, first of all, there's no way to prove that. So it's an assertion. If you go back to people like Kinsey, a lot of the claims of Alfred Kinsey are the basis for the, it turns out everyone is Skittles. Did you know? Alfred Kinsey did a bunch of studies that were violations of human rights, by the way. Within this, I mean, even if you don't believe in human rights, within the system, what they say is human rights, Alfred Kinsey violated all that with his disgusting stuff that he did. And his publications become the basis to say, well, didn't you know everybody's fake and gray? Literally, everyone is fake and gray on a spectrum. But only some of us are you're like 4% fake and gray. People like RuPaul, 80% fake and gray, 90% fake and gray. But everyone is fake and gray. We're all on a spectrum. So my guess would be that it all goes back to Alfred Kinsey's fraudulent studies and his degeneracy. But Alfred Kinsey has been exposed as a fraud. Remember John Money? Who's John Money? John Mayer? The body is one land. I want to run through the halls of my high school. Shout out to... well, the only reason I said RuPaul might not be 100% is because I don't know, and I don't care to check, but as far as I know, there's still the downstairs plumbing, so he's not fully something else. Is that correct? I don't know. All you RuPaul fans in the chat can correct me on that. Work, turn to the left, work, turn to the right, cover girl, give us a twirl. All y'all RuPaul fans will be like, yeah, he's speaking my language now. Meanwhile, y'all over here bitching and not knowing Oasis songs. Look, Oasis is basically the end of rock and roll. I mean, there's no more rock bands. Oasis was the last of great bands. I mean, I hate to tell it to you. That's going to be controversial. Everybody's going to bitch about it, but there's no more rock and roll bands. That's it. They're done. There's no more. In fact, you think I'm joking? One of these big producers, what was his name? Rick Beato? I forget who he's. I've heard his name. I forget who's the producer for. I just watched his video because it popped up randomly yesterday. And he said, have you noticed there's no more bands anymore? Now, obviously, I don't mean literally there's no bands. Here, this guy. So he's some sort of like classic, music producer guy. I don't remember who he was a producer for, but he said, have you noticed that there's no more bands? And that's because when you go on the charts, he was talking about something like the top few hundred bands or artists on the charts. They're all single solo artists because that's how the system works. The model works better to just promote individuals. And it's not really feasible to have bands anymore. And he pointed out something like there's only 3 bands in the top whatever of the charts nowadays. And I'd never heard of any of the 3 that he listed. But so this is an interesting development for where music has gone. So music has gone into this direction of I'm not saying there's no bands. He's saying that the charts are dominated by single solo artists that the system and the record industry, whatever's left of that, that's really what they promote now. So it was an interesting video. I don't really keep up with the music industry because it seemed like music industry was pretty much dead like 10, 15 years ago, right? Wasn't it pretty much like going away? Because pretty much all of the musicians were figuring out, okay, I got to have my own website and people just are going to download this stuff. So the only way to make money is to tour. Like the bands figured that out like 15 years ago, right? But yeah, well, that's what he says. The pop stars have like this army of people that the production and record companies are providing to make them into these products. And I think this is really signaling the end of what we have thought of as like rock and roll bands and all that. Isn't that weird? It's weird to think. Imagine going back to the 90s and your 90s self asking you, being like, what's the future like? Who are the musicians? Like, it would blow their mind if you started trying to explain to them what it's like now in the future. Because it sounds like it would be ideal. Wait, everybody can have their own website and they can do their own stuff. That sounds ideal. Yeah, but it's not really ideal. Now, I understand bands have drama. But bands had drama back when all of the top 100 charting artists were mostly bands. Yeah, I know, Tame Impala. But he's talking about today's charts. Tame Impala is not on the top 50 right now or whatever. Not saying there's no bands. He's saying that bands are fading away because record companies would rather have this corporate team behind a single Billie Eilish or Taylor Swift. That's what he's saying. Ooh, interesting point, Sincere Hypocrite. Is dead internet theory applicable to all of the other cultural institutions. Interesting. Oh, Tame Impala is one guy? I thought he had a band. Okay, I didn't even know that. I mean, I have the albums. I just assumed that he had like backup or whatever. But you know what? Ed Sheeran doesn't have a band. I don't care for Ed Sheeran, but Jamie really likes Ed Sheeran and wanted to go to the concert, so I bought her tickets a few months ago. And what was interesting was that it's just him and his like loop machine, right? So all the songs are him. He did have like a couple artists join him for a collab, but it wasn't a backup band. So even Ed Sheeran is like just one dude. Go check out my video I did on dead internet theory. It's a kind of an extreme sort of. I see dead internet theory as more of a what would you say? More of a thought experiment, but there's some truth to it because the idea is it seemed like around 2015-16 the internet seemed to really change. Part of that, of course, was that Google and the big tech companies and the algorithm changed because of the drama around the 2016 election, right? Russiagate and all that. But the theory of dead internet theory goes further and says, what if the internet was largely flooded with AI and bots at that time? And that's also contributing to the large-scale change in the way we feel and interact with the internet. Yeah, there could be something to that. I mean, I definitely think, for example, I do a lot of research, obviously. And so, before, I'd say from 2016 to now, Google as a search engine basically doesn't work. Because I would say at least 60 to 70% of what you could pull up back then, you can't even find it anymore. It's pretty wild. Do you remember AOL and CDs? Absolutely, man. Did y'all watch my live stream I did on like the 90s? That was a fun live stream. So bands are disappearing. And how has dead internet theory perhaps affected the music genre? Well, what about AI? Like, how many tracks are AI tracks? For example, as you guys remember, when I sang my wonderful, beautiful cringecore hit, the Matt Dillahunty song, Matt Dillamonkey, Scooter produced this AI version in like no time that was way more catchy than my original Matt Dillamonkey song. And it sounded like a literal black choir. And so I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. If the public AI program can do this, maybe they've been doing AI music for frickin' who knows how long. And don't think that the record companies wouldn't scam you by basically just, like, imagine if you're, I don't know, Miley Cyrus, and the record company says, we clicked the button a few times and like the AI spit out 20 new Miley Cyrus songs. You gotta think that's happening, right? Let's see, check this out. So this is AI. What's the program called? Suno or something like that? I mean, this sounds like a black choir from the 70s or Earth, Wind, and Fire or something producing some kind of big R&B soulful ballad. It doesn't sound... I mean, it kind of sounds AI, but I'm sure that if you're a zillionaire, you have access to a better AI than this, right?
Climbed up in that tree. What you doing up there? Why you scared? Why you running from every debate? You ran from Andrew and from me. Matt Dillamonkey, kill a monkey.
You get the point. So if this public goofy AI can spit out something that good, you know that a zillionaire, billionaire record company with access to something fancier could spit out something better. You know what I mean? Anyway. So I'm starting to think too. I mean, I don't believe Mandela effect. I think Mandela effect is stupid. But what if they're trying to? My theory is, what if they're trying to like erase aspects of culture, maybe as an experiment, or maybe they're actually trying to do it. I mean, we all saw what the search engines a few months ago. Remember that when all of the people in history were suddenly brothers and sisters? Now, no offense to my brothers and sisters, but listen, y'all are not all of the people in history. Okay? And remember this Google and this sort of scandal a while back? And then they said, oh, this was a mistake. But so basically AI spat out African and black versions of every person in history by mistake. So I'm thinking, okay, well, so wait a minute. So there we see a window into what could be an example or a means by which you could try to erase history. And if you think about Maoism, remember they tried to do this with the Cultural Revolution that Mao ran. And Mao like energized and used the youth to try to erase history. Yeah, exactly. It was intentional, yeah. So if Mao was an example of that erasing of history and rewriting it, all of these crazy cult people in this woke, CRT, DEI, SDG cult, like they're going to do the same stuff, right? They're willing to do whatever to erase history. So now, so what if they're experimenting with erasing things to see if they can maybe get away with it, erasing certain things? Like, could that be elements of what people think is Mandela effect? I think most Mandela effect nonsense is just people misremembering events. Kurt Cobain was black. I always thought, I knew that a long time ago, right? I got a painting of Kurt Cobain and the paint has darkened. That's what you people think. No, the paint didn't darken. Kurt Cobain was always a brother. That's what you got wrong. Anyway, what if there's going to be an attempt to create totally fictional history? You see what I'm saying? And I think that's very plausible. That's why I think it's more important to have physical copies of stuff. That's why we got so many books. I got 2 different libraries. Why? Well, because a lot of this stuff, they're going to try to get rid of it. I mean, all these sci-fi dystopian stories like Fahrenheit 451, they're not just dystopian stories. These are like what they're going to do. And today when I was looking at my stupid music collection on Apple, I hate using Apple's music collection. But because cars don't have CDs anymore, you have to, if you want to listen to music in your car, you have to have it all on the stupid phone. And so I'm looking on here and I was thinking about, say, old Oasis CDs that I had. And I'm almost certain that I had a 2-disc live track, Familiar to Millions, that had a song on it. And when you go and look Now, I could be misremembering. This could be a actual case of misremembering something. But when you look on the online versions of albums, and this isn't just the case in this just random Oasis example, that I've noticed a lot of different online Apple versions of these downloads. I don't think these are all the same. I heard a song the other day and I'm like, that's not the song from the 90s. That's some weird version, but it was presented as if that was the normative version of that song. I forget which example this was. This is a different example. And I wonder how many cases of things being changed like this. Now, somebody pulled up a Disney example the other day where I've never watched Lilo and Stitch, but apparently Disney has gone back and changed, and they showed the two different versions. Like, they've actually changed the Lilo and Stitch to make her not be jumping into a dryer. And my suspicion is that people complained because a child could see that and jump in a dryer and get stuck in there. But what they changed it to was like looked like an oven, or like a that's even worse, right? Or like something to do with like, dude, why are you in here asking about my personal life? Yes, I'm married, and you're not here to promote other people's discourse. Get out of here. Anyway. Who's cooking me in the chat? What are you talking about? Well, I understand the dryer thing makes sense because it makes sense to not have that in the show. But what I'm saying is that, well, that's one example in that case. But what about, what do you mean you can't hit donate on Streamlabs? You can donate $100. I welcome it. Please do. I mean, we've had people donate $500. You can do $100. Does anybody have any other examples of things where books were changed, albums and CDs were changed, movies were changed? Because I think they're going to start doing this. And they've already said they're going to start doing this. Remember, they said we got to change and ban 1984 Tolkien. We got to ban the Ian Fleming books. Who's cooking? I don't understand who's cooking in the chat. Michael Heiser was a subscriber to my website before he passed away. So people always ask about Michael Heiser, but no, I'm not going to Speaker's Corner. I know they've already been changing stuff. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, they banned episodes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia? Interesting. They changed the ending of the 6th Star Wars to include Anakin. Interesting. They added a disclaimer to Rush Hour? Wow. Well, the disclaimers is just the first stage before the banning. You see that? I mean, did you notice that when Oasis said they were getting back together, the woke was already going after Oasis over Noel playing with a guitar that has the British flag? That's crazy. And Noel made a joke about how stupid modern books were with all their gay titles. So this is getting crazy, man. This is wild. They memory hold all the liberal comedians doing, ooh, interesting. Yeah, so if you do that kind of makeup routine, they memory hold it. Yeah. Did you know there's a memory hold Don Henley song? Funny thing, Alex will actually play this song every now and then. It was an inside job for the well-connected. That is a Don Henley song that you cannot find except I found it on BitChute, of all places. Now, if you go look up, I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe I just wasn't. Maybe it was Don Henley with some other band or something. But you cannot find the song except on like platforms like that. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because Don Henley wrote this song right after the Big Nine about it being an inside thing, right? Okay, here it's. I could not find this on YouTube a while back. Okay, right, interesting. So I looked for the song a year ago, and you couldn't find it. It's interesting that it got put up here 1 year ago. Oh, wait a minute. When was this song written? 2000. What? Now, maybe you could say Don Henley wrote this song and it was just coincidence. I'm surprised that... See, even the people in the chat are saying Don Henley knew about this. John Henley told us 24 years ago what was happening at the Big Nine. Never forget. So the chat's all like, yeah, bro, we know this is talking about Big Nine event. While you were sleeping, they came and took it away. The lanes in the meadows, a place where you used to play. It wasn't inside JOB, by the well-connected. Your little protest was summarily rejected. It wasn't inside JOB, like it always is. Chalk it up to business as usual. While we were dreaming, this little island disappeared. They took away the right to your own ideas. It wasn't inside JOB. Favors collected. Your trusted servants, your politicians, left you unprotected. It was inside JOB. You think you're smart, business as usual, you don't have an effing clue. But those men up in the towers, what they're doing to me and you? This was written in 2000? Wow. Anyway, this was not on YouTube for a long time. You could only find it on BitChute. I'm surprised they put it back on YouTube. By the way, I'm not saying that makes Don Henley some kind of hero. I don't have any... I mean, the Eagles are listed as like a Laurel Canyon type of band. And most of these boomer rock and roll people are like the worst, dude. They're like total garbage people. I'm not saying Don Henley is. I don't know. I haven't followed Don Henley. I don't keep up with the boomer bands. But like if you go on Twitter and you look up like Pink Floyd members profiles, it's all the latest like whatever, like Ukraine flag, trans flag, like that's all they do is put up the worst shit imaginable, right? It was an inside job. Well, they're well connected. Zalmox is $5. How did Third Maccabees get into the canon? To my knowledge, there's no council that ratifies it. I mean, it's in the canon because it's... I mean, I just assumed it's part of the Maccabean text that Trullo affirms. So Trullo affirms what the African canon affirms, right? But actually, as to why the Roman Catholic canon doesn't have it and the Orthodox canon does, I'm not actually sure why. It probably goes back to the fact that the Orthodox canon is what Trullo accepts from the African synods, and the Roman Catholic canon is from the Roman Council of Pope Damasus and what Augustine listed. So that's probably the origin of the disagreement, but why Catholics didn't include it, I don't actually know. Zalmox is $5. One more question. Do you have any recommended reading to get up to date on the history of Islam? I mean, there's a lot you could read about Islam. There's not really any... I don't know of an easy book to start reading. I would say start watching Sam's debates, Sam's channel on all the Islam stuff. Go watch the Dr. Khalil talk that I shared. The Dr. Khalil talk has him beginning to go through the schools. So the first thing you're going to want to learn about Islam is the first early few centuries, the disputes between the Mu'tazila, the Mutakalimim, the what's called the Athari or the Salafi. Those are the early era disputes. You're going to want to listen to Dr. Khalil's talk to understand the basic schools. So you want to understand the difference between the Athari, the Maturidi, the Ash'ari, and then the Shia, who are the Neoplatonic faction of Iran. So, so the first three those are schools within Sunni Islam. Shia are very different. They descend from a different line of Islam, so you're going to want to learn all that stuff. So anyway, there's not an easy... I don't know about I'm sure there is something comparable to Philip Schaff's History of the Church, but I don't know what that would be. Go ask Dr. Khalil. He would know better than me. Sincere Hypocrite, $3. Or Sam Shamoon. Even a couple years ago, there was a writer strike in Hollywood. Yeah, I remember that. We were going to do trying to do that first live stream with Jamie Kennedy around that time. One of the concerns with the writers was that AI was going to regurgitate stuff. Oh, exactly. Yeah, exactly. This makes you wonder if modern movies aren't actually using AI and Marvel universe or whatever to script mass-produced movies. Oh, I bet they are, dude. I bet they are. Yeah, exactly. I forgot about that writer strike over AI. That's a great point. Augusta, $10. Small token of appreciation. I've learned everything. For everything I've learned about my faith here from this channel. Thank you. God bless you and Jamie. Happy Feast of Exaltation. Thank you. Well, we're on the old calendar, but I appreciate that. Thank you for that. Jub, $5. Do you think Blade Runner 2044 scene where Kay has to get permission to go into the... Oh, I forgot about this. He has to get permission to go into the old world's internet archive. Ah, interesting. Yeah, I think that, Alex a long time ago was saying that eventually this present internet will be scrapped. And it used to be called Internet 2. I don't know why they quit using that language or terminology. Maybe the people in the crypto sphere that talk about Web 3, maybe that's what they're referring to, the latest instantiation of what they used to call Internet 2. This was like 20 years ago. They were calling the future internet will be called Internet 2, and the present internet will be scrapped. It won't exist anymore. But like you said, it'll be like some weird archive somewhere that only the global elite have access to. I think that's something to that. And I totally forgot about this section in Blade Runner 2049. That's fascinating. I have to go back and watch that. Sincere Hypocrite, $3. There's an actress named Deborah Wilson whose likeness was scanned into many modern video games. Well, this was in the movie The Congress with Robin Wright. So we actually did some, it's almost 10 years ago that we were doing podcasts. I think we did a boiler room. We did a boiler room where we talked about The Congress by Robin Wright. And if you've never seen this movie, everybody should go watch this, because it was an overlooked dystopian film that pretty much predicted where we're at. Yep, so we're exactly 10 years ago. And I was doing, you know what, I got to put this in the new Esoteric Hollywood. This has got to go in there. Because this was a really important predictive film. So basically, I'll tell you the premise. I won't spoil it for you, but the actress Robin Wright from Princess Bride, she goes to Harvey Keitel, who's like a studio guy or whatever, and she says, as the actress, I'm going to have to retire. I can't really do movies. I've got a son who's got, to be tended to. He's got medical issues. And Harvey Keitel says, well, let the studio buy your image and likeness. And she's like, what do you mean? How could that be? He says, well, we got this new technology where we will scan your whole body, like all of the angles of your body and all of your facial expressions, the whole range of emotions. Here's this big thing she goes and stands in right here. So this is all cameras, right? And so they're creating this digital deep fake version of her, okay? And the movie, as he says, this is the near future, right? They changed her future. So here she is being scanned in. She doesn't really understand like what this is all about, but she needed the money and she wasn't going to be acting anymore. So the studio was telling her and everyone that they would be doing this, and it flashes forward to, here's metaverse. Now they don't call it this, but so basically it's some undefined near future, everyone lives in the, we'll call it the metaverse, the virtual world. So the internet becomes this. It becomes this like 3-dimensional space where you like walk around as whatever avatar you want to be. So here's Robin Wright interacting with the Tom Cruise avatar in the year 2030 or something, right? And then the movie gets really crazy because you got to see this part. I skipped past it. It's very surreal. So basically, in the real time period of the future, people are all walking around with the goggles on their face. Let's see if there's a picture of it. So everyone is basically living in the slums. It's like total, filthy, dirt, poor everybody, right? And I don't know why this image doesn't have them wearing the goggles, but in other scenes, everyone's wearing the goggles to be on the internet all the time. So there's basically a giant dystopian world, but everyone lives in internet dystopia world, dressed like, wearing, tattered rags, basically. So I won't spoil the movie where it goes, but it actually goes way into the future. Like, it goes really wild. It's a crazy movie, but everyone should see it. It's a very predictive, relevant film for where we have gone. And again, we were doing boiler rooms on this 10 years ago when it came out. I wonder if I could find that. I should have put this in the first Esoteric Hollywood. I forgot to do it, though. Let's see if it comes up. No. Man, those old boiler rooms from like 2015, man, they're like, that's like the future, man. We were like spot on. Not everything. We probably got maybe 15% of stuff wrong, but I'd say 80 to 85% of stuff we were pretty spot on as to where we would be going in the future. I mean, we talked about stabbies, we talked about the normalization of where we're at with human sexuality, we talked about tracking and tracing, we talked about a lot of stuff we were spot on. AI and deepfake, where that was going to go. Anyway, my boy, let's see. Sincere Hypocrite said Deborah Wilson's likeness is scanned into many video games. I'm not sure who that is, but it could always be a possibility that in the future they won't even need actors. Well, that's what the movie The Congress is about. Exactly. Schmevin Schmirk, $100. Thank you so much. You can keep this money if you promise not to read any more Latin documents on this stream. Hey, you know what? Nobody would rather retire from reading boring Latin trad documents on screen than me. Because we've been doing this for so many years now. We've had so many hours of so many podcasts of going through Denzinger and all this boring stuff. I should have just skipped it, but for the first hour, that's all anybody wanted. The whole chat was just talking about that. So Mox is $5. Thank you for that $100 super chat. Appreciate that. $5. How do you stay in good shape and mentally aware throughout the day? Chalk.com. What do you mean? Like, we have an amazing sponsor.
I'm going to put you on something crazy real quick. Most of these Zoomer gym bros are consuming macro-guzzling synthetic dyes and synthetic sweeteners on the daily. They don't even know it. Goofy AF. There's nothing great about that. Do not listen any further unless you are an alpha or sigma male. This is important and there could be consequences. There's a new certified sigma male pre-workout powder for sigmas only. It is guaranteed to empower you to dominate your co-workers, fire your boss, aggressively gamble, or invade a small village. Chad Mode stands out from the crowd by excluding artificial flavors, preservatives, sweeteners, and dyes. We've even avoided so-called natural flavors, which are actually not natural at all, ensuring a clean and effective formula. Experience the pure goodness of Chad Mode, colored with organic blue spirulina extract, organic lemon, cherry, and organic maple crystals. Forget synthetic caffeine made in a sketchy Chinese lab. Embrace the natural power of organic green coffee bean extract, which will get your mind going and pump you up to the max. Chad Mode is made in America with all clean ingredients, the first clean pre-workout of its kind. Why are these people adding synthetic sweeteners to every single pre-workout when there are many studied downsides to consuming nasty fake sucralose? Each dose of Chad Mode contains the kick of a cup and a half of coffee, delivering a surge of energy alongside essential vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and herbal extracts. Chad Mode will allow you to fire your boss and dominate anyone who opposes you. Chad Mode will make you more dominant in your daily life, so proceed with caution. It's as simple as mixing 1 or 2 scoops of our fine powder into water or juice, providing you with a delicious, energizing beverage featuring a burst of sweet organic fruit flavor. Chad Mode will give you the extra edge you desperately crave. Don't miss out. Secure your supply of Chad Mode on TikTok Shop with a limited time massive discount. Elevate your workouts and supercharge your days. Chad Mode, not for your average gym bro zoomer who consumes synthetic blue dyes on the daily. Buy on the TikTok Shop now with a massive discount provided by TikTok for a very limited time. Buy now while this is still available, or go to chalk.com and use code in caption. Chad Mode has been flying off the shelves because it's the first of its kind, certified for alpha males only. Do not buy if you are a beta. We will refund your money. I'm gonna put you on something crazy real quick. Most of these Zoomer gym bros are consuming macro-guzzling synthetic dyes and synthetic sweeteners on the daily. They don't even know it. Goofy AF. There's nothing great about that. Do not listen any further unless you are an alpha or sigma male. This is important and there could be consequences. There's a new certified sigma male pre-workout powder for sigmas only. It is guaranteed to empower you to dominate your co-workers, fire your boss, aggressively gamble, or invade a small village. Chad Mode stands out from the crowd by excluding artificial flavors, preservatives, sweeteners, and dyes. We've even avoided so-called natural flavors, which are actually not natural at all, ensuring a clean and effective formula. Experience.
You can head on over to chalk.com. There is the link right there, choq.com. And not only do you get access to a great discount with the promo code J44LIFE, that's JAY44LIFE, you get access to that on the regular through using the recurring subscription promo code JAY44LIFE. And if you just want to test it out, you can still get a 40% discount with J40, that's JAY40. You get 40% off the male performance stack. You don't have to buy that whole stack. You could buy individually the Action 2.0 or the Tonkat Elite, the Tonkat 100, or any of these other products over here, focused on performance, focused on energy, focused on getting your health right by de-soyifying yourself and becoming more and more toxically masculine. So, big advocate for Chalk. They are our sponsor and have been for 3 years, maybe even moving on to almost 3 years, about 3 years. So maybe 4. So shout out to Chalk. And then what else do we do? Well, I try to eat a pretty strict, as best I can, carnivore diet. We also try to mitigate that with fasting and so forth with what the church requires. Don't always live up to that, but that's what we shoot for as best we can. That will depend on your health situation as to what's right for you. I'm not telling you what to do. And then we go to the gym on average 3 times a week. So Jamie and I are in a pretty regular gym swing now of 3 times a week. So I would say those things. We also do pretty extensive walks. I'm not a big runner. If I am in the mode of playing basketball, I'll run playing basketball, but I don't like go out and run typically. But Jamie and I do also do pretty long walks on the regular. So my main health things are gym. Really, I'm talking about like 2-3 mile walks on the regular, and pretty strict diet, no seed oils. I don't eat candy. I don't eat a lot of carbs. I don't eat sugars, very little of those, unless my beatus is attacking and I'm getting angry at people. Then I got to have a little bit of a ginger chew to calm down. So those are my health regimen is very simple. It's not too extensive. I do take supplements. I do take chalk, that kind of stuff. So that's my means. How do I stay mentally aware? I drink a lot of coffee, espresso. We've been taking NAIDs, which have been pretty effective. I think they work pretty good. We tried 2 different brands. Both brands seem to work pretty good. I forget what the names of those brands were. I don't know if Chalk has those. I think they're mainly focused on bodily related stuff. But remember, at Chalk they also have female vitality stack too, so you can get that. And you don't have to buy the whole stack. You can buy individual products too. So Shilajit's great. Ashwagandha's great. Irish moss for balancing out, hormone levels in the ladies, this kind of stuff. Guys, if you're going to the gym, you need that energy. There's all kinds of different stacks over there for men. Male vitality stack, etc., performance stack, all available at chalk.com, depending upon what is the best fit for you. I'm a big fan of the, is it NIAD? I forget how it's listed. Shilajit's great, yeah. So head on over to Chalk and utilize that. Now remember, also, I will be live doing some Cringecore live at Top Lobster's event here. It's going to be a lot of fun. October 25 and 6 in Florida. We got stand-up comedy. He's still figuring out who he's getting to come do this at live podcasts. There's going to be some of the libertarian people there, some of the more people not libertarian there. There's going to be comedians, stand-up. I'm going to be harassing people with karaoke and Cringecore. So if you want to see Cringecore live, and I'm sure I'll be hanging out doing interviews with people stuff too. October 25 and 26, we'll have our books. Yes, you can buy books there. So get your tickets to Bohemian Grove over here at toplobster.com. And the link is right there. So we didn't really get into papal geopolitics or whatever. That's okay. I can change the title. We did end up talking about, well, we kind of did. We didn't really talk about the end times. I might change this title because we didn't really talk about the end times. One World Weird Order. That's a better title. That's more of what we talked about. We talked about pop culture, weird things in culture. I don't know. It was just a fun stream. Oh, we talked a lot about those deconstructing my faith videos or whatever. I forgot about that. I've been who am I rated by? What do you mean I've been rated? I don't understand what's happening. All right, thank you guys. A lot of fun today. Appreciate the super chatters. Be sure and get the signed copies of the book. We didn't really go through all the books. I had a lot of books. I was going to talk about, classic famous books that we've read